Snap. We're live. I didn't even realize that. Okay, I don't know if that part will be heard. But yeah, people giving you a hard time or Wiccan's Wicked Reptiles a hard time. I'm like, what has the hobby come to? Because like you guys are two people that actually push for some of the best like updated knowledge and care about reptiles. So I'm just like, if you're trying to downgrade, um, if you're trying to downgrade like some of the best, most caring people in our hobby, what has our hobby really come to? Anyway, welcome everybody to Reptiles and Research with Geeky Gecko Creations, talking about red heat bulbs, etc. Wherever this conversation goes. But I accidentally clicked the go live. That's why we kind of started off with the conversation. But for those of you who don't know, Liam, right? From Reptiles and Research on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. The name says it all. He is about reptiles and he is about research. You can see some very gigantic, bioactive, natural-looking terrariums behind him with some very unique lighting in them, which we're going to talk about today as the focus topic is lighting. And we're going to get into that a little bit. But Liam, would you like to say a couple words of introduction? Who are you and what do you stand for? And what are your passions in this hobby?
No worries. So my name is Liam Sinclair. I run the YouTube channel Reptiles and Research. And in a nutshell, I share my own hobby and then I teach people how to look after reptiles and then teach people when the new information comes out. And then I take the complex words that are in studies and I give it to people in a normal, easy to understand way.
Like Ferguson zones.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you would consider that complex, but your average person probably doesn't know what a Ferguson zone is.
Exactly.
Okay, so give me 2 seconds here. I just want to see if we could get a sound check from anybody. I see that we are live and we are good. Actually, let's do our own sound check real quick. If you don't mind, everybody, I'm just going to turn this off. That sounds good. Liam, can you say something? Testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. Easy peasy.
Sounds good to me.
Cool. So glad to finally be meeting with you. I have watched your channel for a while. To give you a little background on me, I am a pet keeper. I got my first leopard gecko at like 8 years old. Sorry, this is gonna be really annoying that it looks like I'm looking up, but
yeah, I get you. I'm doing the same with a laptop. You're fine.
Yeah, but you look good though because you're looking straight. But I'm like, man, people are gonna think I'm like cross-eyed or something here. But so a little background on me: like I was a pet keeper growing up, like everybody starts off as, and then I became really passionate about breeding. And when you're a really passionate breeder, you look up to other breeders and you do the things that other breeders are doing. So if you look at like Justin Kabelka for ball pythons, or like some of my role models growing up was like Matt Baranek of Saddleback Reptiles. You probably heard of his name. Like I don't know if you have or not, but he's a
Kabelka, yeah.
Yeah, Kabelka, and then Matt Baranek on for leopard geckos was a really big influencer. And so you see the way that these guys are keeping. They're keeping in tubs. They're keeping in low enrichment setups and whatnot. And I always try to be as honest as possible. I do believe the animals deserve more. And I do believe that the animals would appreciate more because we're learning so much about these reptiles and the way that they process light, like the topic of this episode, the way that their brains work and they can actually develop bonds and relationships with their owners. But I'll be honest, breeders, like we're talking about, we sacrifice the high enrichment side of things for the efficiency of producing an animal for somebody that can have a pet and potentially do those things for the animal. So from an honest perspective, I would like to see breeders as a whole, which is something that I'm working on personally, but promotion for breeders as a whole and technology for breeders to improve so that rack systems could even have like UVB or infrared heating, things that we're going to talk about, minor improvements that breeders would still get condemned and criticized for but things that we could do to make steps towards improving the lives of our animals, even from a breeding operation. But that's the background that I'm kind of coming from. So when I look at you and other people that are promoting the highest level of care and research for our reptiles, I look up to you guys. I agree with you guys. I know that you guys probably have some very harsh criticism towards like breeder setups and whatnot, but we could talk about that a little bit today. But also the practicality of how do we make improvements or encourage improvements in a hobby that's been so set in stone for a very long time. So I've kind of been rambling a little bit, but anything you want to touch on based off of what I just said right there?
Have you seen, first thing that came up to my mind, have you seen the new racks that come out of China with a screen top so you can put lights on it?
I haven't, but I've heard of things like that coming out. So if you want to explain what
cheap.
those are. So racks with screens, can you explain that a little bit?
So they're on Alibaba, actually. They're basically your typical rack with a drawer, but as it meets the lip's got like a mesh for you to put lighting over, and you can say whether you want it to be half mesh or full mesh. I think I spoke to Ashley Design about it, so I can actually find the link for you if you want to see it.
Yeah, if you find the link, we could throw it up on screen. FYI warning, sometimes when we when we show things on screen, we echo a little bit. So we'll just show it real quick and then we'll come back after that.
How do you want me to give it to you? Do you want me to
just... can you share your screen to the back room and then I'll pop it onto the front? Does that make sense?
Okay, we'll figure this out.
I think there's a way for you to screen share, and then that will upload it to the back room here, and then I can upload that to the front screen. So welcome everyone who's watching.
There we go. Yep, I see it. But there you go.
Yeah, so just a warning. You could talk a little bit, but I think in the past it's echoed a bit. So let's just let's see what we get here. So this is on Alibaba. Cool. I'll show this for a second so you guys can see the screens. Any more pictures you want to show, and then I'll take it down and then we'll talk about it. Okay. Cool. So everyone can kind of see an idea. Did that echo, by the way? Anyone, if you could leave a thing in the chat. If it didn't, then I know that we could stay on that kind of screen longer. But very cool. It's interesting that China came up with this before like maybe the UK or America, who are pushing for this kind of stuff quicker, but I guess they're the kings of production, right? So can you talk a little bit about that technology and what did we actually witness there? What did we see?
Just innovation, really. Like it's basically you having a rack, but actually about to use lighting and stuff.
So it's as simple as a tub with a screen over the top. Instead of most tubs have a solid surface over the top. So the screen gives you the ability to slide in any type of heat bulb or UVB bulb that you would like.
Whatever you want.
Whatever you want. So that is very cool. I don't remember the company. I also saw a company recently that's making like, do you know how some people for crested geckos per se, they'll take like a stair light tub and they'll just stack it on top of each other. I saw a company recently that has tubs with lighting on the inside, if I'm remembering correctly, like UVB on the inside and heating on the inside projecting down. And it's like a plug and play setup and you can stack them on top of each other. So it looks like a tub with windows and it has lighting and it's plug and play. I don't know if you see that or know what I'm talking about, but
I haven't seen that, but it sounds cool.
Yeah, so I definitely know the technology is going to improve. Now the education level needs to improve, right? Because there's a lot of people that are old school. There's a lot of videos on the internet. Like even I'm trying to improve and change my videos now to start promoting higher enrichment, even for breeders. But there's a lot of videos out there that breeders are looking to or keepers are looking to of minimalistic setups or outdated setups. You know, we really don't see promotion of heat rocks anymore, right? But I think some companies still sell them. We don't see any promotion of red heat bulbs, but they're still the #1 most distributed and sold heat bulb in the hobby. So it's like, how do we overcome these hurdles? Do we need the giants of Zoomed and whatnot to just like discontinue these products that are outdated? Will they ever do that? What is your kind of opinion on how we see progress and change in the hobby moving forward?
Well, the thing is, I would. There's a lot of things I would discontinue, but the problem that you can't, if you're one company, I won't name companies. I don't want to get any lawsuits here, but
Sure,
let's
yeah.
say you're one company and I'm one company and you're another, right?
Yep.
We both got the red bulbs. If I say, okay, I'm going to discontinue them because I don't want people to use them and I want them to use like this one, that means I withdraw out of that market and you get to carry on and you keep all that money. And the situation doesn't change. So unless they all together withdraw it and stop doing it, they're allowing that space for someone else to continue to make that money, so they can't withdraw. So they have to stay in, and they'll continue making it until people stop buying it. And part of the reason why, even in shops that I've worked in, there's been like, well, people with chickens come in to buy them, so we stock them, but they never recommend them. But just because chicken people want them, so it's like, all right, cool. In a nutshell, it's because people buy it.
Yeah. So let's talk about before we talk about like the change and whatnot, let's actually talk about the crux of why we're here and the foundation of this topic. Because I was going to ask about that. I was like, red bulbs are used for chickens. Do they have the same rumors floating around the chicken hobby as far as like red lights hurting the eyes of chickens or chickens going blind or something? So
couldn't tell you. I know nothing about chickens.
Okay. Well, reptiles as a whole is a fairly newer hobby, right? 40 years or so that it's been on the mainstream. Chickens have been around for tens of thousands of years in the human whatever, depending on what you believe as far as like human timescale and whatnot. But they've been around for at minimum thousands of years within human population. So it's like people kind of got over it, I guess, or you know, if there was any like chicken advocators, so to speak, they just kind of got, you know, overseen somewhere along the line. But let's talk about the title of this video is, do red bulbs blind or hurt reptiles' eyes? Red bulbs were super popular in like the early 90s and the early stages of the reptile hobby. Why did they become popular? Why are they red? And let's kind of start there.
So they're basically the exact same as a normal heat lamp. The only difference is they've tinted the glass that's like encapsulating the light up bit, the filament, with red glass, so that when the light goes through it, it tints all red and it looks like a red color, like Christmas ornaments. They used to believe that reptiles couldn't see red. So they would, because they didn't have like heat mats and stuff back then and other things, they just had like heat lamps, regular light bulbs. So they would say, if it's red, you can leave it on all night long because they can't see it. And that was why they were so popular. Nowadays, we know they can see red. So then the information started changing and people would say, well, don't use them at night time because you're going to disturb sleep patterns, especially with things like bearded dragons and stuff. If they do sleep more at night time, you're going to disturb them. It's like us trying to sleep with having a light on. It's going to disturb your sleep, right? So then that started being a recommendation of like, yeah, let's not use that. Let's just have nothing on at night time. And then somewhere along the way, it's been misconstrued that it like blinds reptiles or it damages eyes. It doesn't. It's just they can see it and it's going to keep them up at night if they want to sleep at night.
Okay.
That's it.
And to kind of, we'll touch on this a little bit, but I was rewatching the episode with Dr. Frances Baines is like an advisor to like, or she was, from her testimony, she was a heavy advisor to like all the main bulb and light producing companies that we know today. So she's like a very trusted source within the reptile community, especially when it comes to her specialty, which seems to be reptile lighting. And I was rewatching her episode with Animals at Home podcast last night just to kind of touch up and see if I missed anything from the last time I listened to her. So I will leave that link in the description below after this live stream if you guys want a further information on what we're about to talk about right now. But the reason that light at night would be bad for nocturnal reptiles is because the light would trigger certain hormones within their body to throw off their ability to tell day and night cycles, and it may stress them out in that way. If they can't tell day and night, they may be staying awake for periods longer than they should be, or asleep for periods longer than they should be. Is that kind of the general gist of it?
So the simple way of understanding it is, in a nutshell, light, when it hits our eyes, makes us wake up. And when it gets dark, we start to fall asleep. Things that are nocturnal are flipped. So light, when it hits their eyes, makes them sleepy. And then when it gets dark, they gain more energy and they wake up.
Okay.
So what happens is exactly the same as us. If you don't give them light during the day, darkness at night, they're going to be in that weird groggy state where they're not really sleeping properly and they're not really like energized during the day, in the same way that we wouldn't. If you were kept in a state where you don't get darkness at night and there's lights on, and then it's kind of dark during the day, you're going to be feeling kind of weird, right? And it's exactly the same for them. It's just the reverse. They're just on the reverse schedule. That's literally all it is.
Cool. Very good. And at certain times here, I may play devil's advocate or try to look at something from a realistic perspective. And I don't mean to be rude or insensitive to your opinion, but I would like for you to push back as hard as you want. Because I think for any idea to stand on a solid ground, it needs to face the highest level of criticism. Would you agree? So whatever that criticism is, if it's a solid idea, it should be able to stand up against that criticism. So if I do criticize any of these viewpoints or have some pushbacks, I push back as hard as you want. And I would like, because I do think that there's value in what you're saying and in the knowledge. But if I have a question on something, or if I see it from a different perspective, I may just say
You're
it.
fine, mate. Just say it and I'll say if it's shit or not. It's fine. We'll just say how it is. You're fine. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to be offended. You're fine.
Cool. So my feedback on the red, let's linger on this red light situation real quick. My first pushback would be, it never seemed to cause a problem for the last 30 years in the hobby for nocturnal species. So why did it become a problem now? And if I could explain that a little bit, what you were saying a second ago, we now know they can see red light, but maybe it's so dim that the animals don't mind, or it simulates like the moon. For us to say that nature has no light at night whatsoever is just not true. There's street lights, there's the moon, there's the stars in very rural areas. So it doesn't seem like for leopard geckos and ball pythons and other species where red lights are really common to use at night, it doesn't seem like it really affects their sleep rhythms. So why make a big deal of it? That's my pushback criticism for the red light.
What I would say to that is that we know, not necessarily someone's done a study in leopard geckos, we know that when we do things in nocturnal houses and zoos and stuff, there's lots of research on using red lights and stuff disturbs their circadian rhythm and their like hormones and stuff like that. So what actually the modern way of doing nocturnal houses and zoos and stuff is to actually have low amounts of light for you to see during the day, and then at night time they have full-blown, like full lighting on to make the animals sleep at night time, because they flip their switch, they flip their cycle. So we know that things that are nocturnal stuff do get disturbed by it. But the red bulbs aren't dimmer. You just think they are because it's red. But if you actually look at how bright it is and you actually measure like the illumination, it's negligible difference. The only reason that people think it doesn't matter is because they see them being up at times where they're like, oh, it's because it's less dark. It's not because it's less dark. It's because they're not like solidly like, I sleep when it's bright and I come out when it's darker. So the way that I would do it is I would stagger it. And I think I watched you said similar. What I would do is I would have things on for 12 hours, the heat lamp on for 12 hours, and then I would have like your bright lights, like your LEDs or your UV. I would have them go off like 2 hours before the heat lamp, and then to come on 2 hours after, or whatever, just so there's that period of like twilight, of like it's dim before it goes completely off. That's when you're going to see things that are like crepuscular and stuff come out. Things that like that sort of dim period before it's completely dark, that's when you're going to see Leos come out and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
I'm
so
just looking at the chat; it's confusing me.
no, you're good. Actually, I was gonna say that on the chat real quick. So there is some. I thought I heard you say this, or maybe Dr. Francis. There's always more to learn about reptiles. Like what we know about the way that reptiles perceive light right now is only a fraction of what we're going to know over the next 50 years. I heard
sure,
Dr. Baines even say something like that. So we're always improving. Would you agree with that? We're always learning where we may have been different. But I think I heard Dr. Baines, or maybe you or somebody, say that reptiles may actually not see the color red the way that we see it. And that's what I was telling the person in the chat is, could they see the red color as a different color potentially than actually red?
Well, the thing is, we don't even see red the same. Me and you, I'll say that's red. And this is why we have these things of like, that dress is gold, or it's this, because even though largely we're built to see it in this certain way, our eyes will be slightly different, and the way that we interpret colors will be slightly different. There are some people that can see UVA and the rest of us can't.
Really?
They can see a whole color that we can't. Yeah, there are some people whose vision just dips into UVA and they can see things that we can't.
So real quick for the chat, can you tell them what UVA is? Because it's supposed to be a non-visible light, right?
Oh, yeah. So you have the UV part of sunlight. You have UVB and UVA. Basically, the UVB is the bit that the body of animals makes, and our bodies, to be fair, makes vitamin D in our bodies when the UVB hits our skin. UVA is the other part of UV, which is a lot of animals can see that color, and they have vision. Their eyes can see those colors. So a lot of things can see. Imagine like a video game, right? Imagine there's like berries on a bush. Some things will see those berries kind of like appear bright, or they glow a little bit of a white light, or we don't really know because we can't see it. But it allows things to highlight certain things, like certain kestrels can see like the urine of mice and stuff. It like glows, so they can see it from really high up. So it's basically the vision aspect of UV that animals can see into. Well, some animals can.
Yeah. The topic of lighting goes a lot deeper than people think. From me listening to Dr. Francis Baines, it goes pretty deep, the topic of lighting. Not only visible light, but also like levels of invisible light, right? Which is kind of where the infrared comes in, which is not to be confused with incandescent red, which is when I first emailed you. Yeah, when I first emailed you, I was like, I thought, because I always heard the red bulbs were called infrared bulbs, but they're actually incandescent red. Infrared is a technology of bulb that I'm seeing more common now. Can you talk about the difference between infrared bulbs and incandescent red bulbs?
So the way that we see, right, is we see red, blue, green, which is why our LEDs are RGB, right? So when we see red, blue, green, our human eyes, when we see those at the right amounts that are leveled out, we see white light, right? So that's just how we see. So when you have like the incandescent red, it's just a heat lamp with red glass. So that the bulb lights up, the bulb lights up, and because it's going through red glass, it makes everything red. So obviously, because we're seeing a load of red, we just see red. It's just visible light, but the red color red. So it's not infrared.
If I can stop you there real quick for people to paint this picture, what you're essentially saying is this. At noontime, the sun in the sky, to all of us as humans in general, unless someone has a complication with their eyes or something, but in general, it appears a very like brightish white yellow color, which is what the normal color of a heat bulb is. But you're saying they cover that with a red film, and it's just as bright to the animals, but now it looks red to us, but we don't exactly know. You're saying that the leopard gecko at night would perceive it like being a bright red sun during the day, but that's essentially what you're saying as far as the brightness of the light goes. It just because it looks dimmer to us does not mean that it actually is dimmer to the reptile. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'd imagine they wouldn't see it too dissimilar. It's just that we think it's dimmer, but it's not. So even though it looks dimmer to us, it's not. We just think because it's just red, because it's not white. We associate white with it being brighter.
Okay,
it's just red.
It's
So
just
it's
red.
the basically going to see life like they're in like a photography room, basically. The same. But I don't think they would see it too dissimilar from us.
Okay,
It's
so it would be
overloaded
like
on red.
if somebody put on a red lens of goggles during the day, midday sun, and looked up at the sun, it would be like the same brightness, but it would just be a different color now because they're looking
Yeah.
through a red lens. And you're saying that's essentially what the red bulbs, the incandescent red bulbs are. But now, what is an infrared bulb, which actually does dull the light, right? Or
So infrared is what we associate with heat. So it's the invisible radiation or energy from the sun. So when we get heated underneath a lamp, that's us feeling the infrared that heats underneath it. So it's the invisible heat, basically. It's
invisible
not
heat.
actually heat, but we associate
It's,
it with heat.
it's energy, right? If
It's
I
energy, it's
listen to,
radiation, is the way to say it.
yeah, because the sun actually produces energy, which is perceived in visible light to us as well as invisible light that we feel. Right. That's basically what.
Mhm.
That's why it feels good to step outside and like have the sun hit your skin and like absorb into your body. For a few minutes. I think they say like no more than 30 minutes to an hour a day, or you might increase your risk for like skin cancer and things because it can be bad. Too much of it can be bad, but it feels really good walking from inside no sun to outside on a bright sunny day. You're just like, yes, sunlight. At least I would think most people feel good, right? But
Yeah, it's the UVB doing that as well, because when UVB hits your skin cells start releasing endorphins. So it's the infrared feels good, and the basically all of it feels good because you're designed to like want to be in the sun because your body uses so much of the sun. It's a free resource, so your body makes you want to like get to go do it. Because no, animals don't go, oh, I'm making vitamin D in my skin and it's going to my liver. All we know is, this feels good.
so question in the chat. So does an infrared bulb actually emit like deeper levels of heat than a regular basking bulb then, based on what you're saying?
So I'm going to try and make it really basic. So basically, you have longer wavelengths and shorter wavelengths. So they tend to chop up into infrared A, infrared B, and infrared C. In a nutshell, the best thing you can give is just the regular heat lamp because it produces the closest thing to what the sun gives off.
Okay.
In a nutshell, the ones that are like the infrared heat projectors with a little thing that glows a little bit and
Yes.
it's no light at all.
Yeah.
I don't recommend them.
You don't? Okay, because I saw I thought certain zoos and stuff, if I was remembering some of Dr. Frances Bain's photos from her, like some of the work that she's done, I thought they have large ones of those for like tortoises at night or something, but maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong. Or is that a common technology that people do use, the infrared at night?
Sometimes, but the thing is though, here's the way I view it.
Mm-hmm.
The way that like all cycles and stuff, the sun is there during the day, and you get lots of infrared A, the really good infrared. There's a little bit of infrared B in there as well, and then that warms up rocks and stuff. And those short, high intensity wavelengths will go into that rock, and then they'll stretch out. And once that rock gets really hot, it re-radiates and releases all that heat, and it's a longer wavelength, less energy infrared. So that's basically like when things are just hot to the touch.
Okay.
So one's basically radiation. It's like the energy, like it's directional. It's like a beam, and then the other thing is just hot things. So infrared C is just hot things. The reason I don't recommend the projectors with the invisible ones, is because it's heavily one way to infrared B and C, right? So it's not really natural. But the heat lamps just a regular heat lamp already has infrared B in it, as well as all the infrared A. So it's much more closely to sunlight. So the ones that are invisible are just really unnatural. So there is no point in time where you ever get like the type of energy that gives off during the day, unless you're like next to a fire or in a volcano. Like it's not it's just weird. So it would be like us being at night time and you walking out of your house at the middle of the night and then you're feeling like the sun on you and you're like, what? So I can imagine it's just very confusing. So the way I see it is like you can't beat the regular heat lamp. It's ironic because we went through a whole thing of like a regular heat lamp was the first thing we had. Went through the whole thing of like heat mats and stuff like that. And it turns out the closest thing that you can get to that sort of sunlight is just the regular heat lamp we had all along.
Now, you have more experience as a keeper for sure, and especially somebody that has experimented with a lot of different light bulbs and styles over the years, since that's been a heavy focus of you. I personally feel this feeling can be wrong, and anybody in the chat that watches this back, let me know. But I have 1,000 leopard geckos right now. I had 2,000 last year. I observe and watch my leopard geckos a lot. I've watched a lot of videos. I watch videos from the breeder side to the keeper side to the nature side. Like I watch all kinds of stuff. I personally feel like leopard geckos come out more when they have a red bulb, even if the red bulb is during the day, compared to a white bulb during the day. What is your experience with that and your opinion on using a white basking bulb for the gecko versus using a red basking bulb during the daytime itself?
Well, it depends. There's so many variables that go into it, right? Like if an animal comes out of a rack that's never had any lighting, of course the one that is not as like white and wool will be less shocking to them, but that's because it's closer to like things being off, right? So
Right.
if things are raised with like the lights on, then like my leopard geckos will go bask, sit up on cork, sat there sunbathing with bright lights. I've got metal halides. I'm not even going to talk about those types of lamps, but I can tell you that I think I've probably got the brightest leopard gecko setup I think anyone's ever had, and she'll sit there straight up. So I think it just depends of like things just take a long time to get used to things. Like if things are used to like dim enclosures, when you start putting like lights on it, they take ages to get used to it. Like some things I get where 6 months before they stop being like a scaredy cat about it.
Okay. That's actually really good advice for people to consider, which is actually another point I wanted to bring up is when Dr. Frances Baines, when I was listening to her episode with the Animals at Home podcast, again, great episode. One of the things that she was saying was we want to try to mimic nature for these animals. And a part of me completely is gung-ho, like, yeah, nature all the way. These animals evolved or adapted in nature. That's the way to go. But another part of me, again, playing devil's advocate and challenger in this situation, would be similar to something you just said, is animals adapt based on their environment. And let's just say, hypothetically, I'm going to put this out there in a way and you react to it raw the way that you want. What if over the last 40 years in this hobby, the constant use of leopard geckos being kept and bred predominantly under red light, what if their offspring are actually more beneficial under red light now compared to putting them back under extreme UV that they're not used to because they've been plucked out of the wild for so long and their bodies have like depleted these defenses against like sunburn and radiation and all these kinds of things that could potentially go wrong with now all of a sudden changing them to a different style of light setup. I just want some feedback and what's your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a degree to that because everything you do when you're breeding animals obviously goes into the RNA and it goes into like the production of animals. Like if you have a stressed animal when they've got eggs or they're pregnant, this is like really easily known in dogs, then they're going to produce puppies or offspring that are really stressy. Like we had a corn snake literally this year, god, just snappy, and the babies that came out just snappy, and it's just things go like that. So a little bit, yeah, but you can breed preference into things. Like you can breed for preference. We know that you can breed for preference over certain food stuff, and over certain generations they get more used to it. So a little bit, maybe. I think the way that you just got to view it is choice. So I don't like entire enclosures. I only like one little patch, or at maximum half, and then they can move in and out of that. So even during the day, if they want to come out and not be under lights, they don't have to be. And
Okay,
I think also that is the main reason why everyone's like, my leopard gecko won't come out, because they've lit the entire thing, and there's no choice, because outside in nature they can go under a bush if they want, or they go into a rock wall even during the day and not be sitting in the sun. But there's a lot of people that make the mistake of lighting the entire thing. It's like bam, spotlight, and you can't get out of it, and the Leos never come out. But
okay, well, that's good feedback to hear from you, somebody who's experimented with a lot of like bright lighting. That because I've heard so many different things, and maybe you have an opinion on this. Leopard geckos were first thought to be nocturnal. Then it was changed that they were crepuscular. Then it was changed that they were opportunistic. I forget the word for that. Then I feel like, ephemeral. Then it went back to like nocturnal or something, I thought. So what is your exact opinion on the leopard gecko's preferences? What do you observe having those bright white lights on in your enclosures, and then whatever you do for night? Do you observe more activity during the day, night, both, equal? What are your observations?
They're more active at night, really. What they'll do is typically, like now and again, when what I do see is if a leopard gecko has never had UV, what I'll see is they'll sit there and bask like all day long for like 48 hours. And after they've topped off, then they'll wander off and they'll start setting into a rhythm and stuff. But typically, once I've had something for a while, they'll probably like bask now and again, maybe once a week, or maybe once every 2 weeks. And the most time they'll be into their daily rhythm of like coming out with things like darker and stuff.
So being that leopard geckos are mainly active at night, what do you actually use for heat at night if they're eating at night? So you don't worry about them not having heat at night while they're eating at night?
Mate, my leopard geckos get cold.
Okay, so like 60 degrees or so, 65?
And the rest, 50
at night. So they're eating at night in 50-degree temperature, and then they're basking during the day to digest. Is that what you're saying?
Well, right now, I've just turned it off. Right now, my room.
You really keep it that cold?
Mate, you'd be surprised how cold things can go.
I've never heard of someone living in. Actually, my wife's parents, in the wintertime, they let their house get to 50. So,
I'm trying to figure out this temperature. So right now, it's 72 at the moment. Oh, no, 63. That's changed. That's what I'm sat at. At night, it goes down to 50. Easy.
Wow, that's crazy. So that's interesting. That could open up a whole new topic of questions I could have. But okay, so your geckos are eating right at night because they forest at night. They're mainly active at night. They're eating in 50, 60-degree temperatures, and then they just wait it out until the morning when the lights kick on, and then that's when they'll bask and get the heat to digest their food. So you don't have a heat pad, an infrared, a red bulb, or anything going at night, just to be clear.
No, they don't need it. They don't need it. Well, what we've got is hybrids. Like, for one, they're from like leopard geckos are from like arid areas that get cold at night anyway, right?
They do, true.
And then two, there is the mountain species that's mixed into them as the hybrids they are. So there's that cold tolerance that is in the lineage of leopard geckos. And three, like when they have like things that have like had heat lamps on it all night long, like the setup you just uploaded, that nice big like slab that you had underneath those lamps, that's gonna stay plenty warm for them all night long.
Right. So you've not
got a heat rock.
You're not against it per se. You just don't personally do it, or you don't think it's a bad idea to provide heat at night. You just don't do it.
I just don't do it.
Or do you think it's a bad idea?
It depends. It depends, because if you're like trying to heat them and it's like, what's 25 degrees in Fahrenheit?
I think approximately 80 something ish.
Yeah, if you're trying to keep them like that, what you end up having is an animal that doesn't really get to cool down at night. Doesn't really get to like calm down its immune system and stuff. So what happens is they kind of sit groggy. Their immune system is kind of like, what you want is things to cool down, fire up when they like go and heat themselves up. So you have this switching on and then this break period and switching on again. Like that's how the immune system of things are like, say, really healthy and rigorous. When you keep things like this meandering middle ground, it leaves their immune systems kind of like, neither here nor there. Like for like real strength, I want things to cool down, and when they bask, they fire up, and that's how their immune system stays really, really strong. Same for a lot of things. A lot of the snakes, like the leopard geckos.
Yeah, there are some snake breeders I know that swear by they brumate their ball pythons in the winter at like 50 degrees for a couple weeks to a month or something, and then they bring them out and they have the best productions. And there's some like very big companies that do that. So that kind of just supports.
Mine does that every night.
Yeah, I see what you mean about we don't want to. Oh, okay. There's a saying. And maybe you won't agree that this relates to reptiles, but let me see if I remember this correctly. Hard men, like tough men, produce easy times. Easy times produce soft men. Soft men produce hard times. Hard times produce hard men. It's a cycle. So kind of what you're saying, if I'm putting it in that metaphor, is if we give our leopard geckos access to all the cozy features of heat at night and stuff like that, their immune system never really builds up to what it's capable of or what you think it should be at naturally. Is that kind of what you're saying?
But it depends. Yes, by and large, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, but that's like those sorts of. If you were to have it at like, well, what's 18? What's that like 68?
18, I think like 70s, 60s, high 60s.
Yeah, the late 60s. If you want to set it to the late 60s, fine, whatever. I think that dropped down to the late 60s. Yeah, that's going to do them a world of good just to cool down. But they can go colder as long as you're giving them the opportunity to heat up during the day. Most things. I mean, my ball python goes down to 10 degrees every single night.
Okay.
During the winter time, but then she can bask at like 40 degrees, which is like what, 105. As long as you allow things to heat up and warm up their core during the day, they can take it going cold at night.
Yeah, actually, that's another thing too. Is I think I've heard people criticize me before for saying that like leopard geckos can have 100 to 110 basking spot, and I don't know your thoughts on this, but they come from Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, where the air temperature is above 100 and the basking temperatures are even like super high. So again, I'm not saying that the gecko should only have access to 110 hotspot, but if there's 110 hotspot and then 100 hotspot around that, and then a 90 hotspot around that, and then an 80 hotspot, to me, that seems like that replicates nature more, or what the gecko would have access to in nature as far as coming in and out of temperature zones. I don't see why people would have a problem, but some people get super trippy just because of ideologies that are passed on in this hobby that become very like dogmatically religious. Like, you shall not go above 90 for a leopard gecko. So just looking for some, I guess, feedback on that.
I mean, I've tried it. I've had my basking spot up to like 96 around that point, but mine doesn't. Mine kind of around sort of like 90-ish is when she'll like go and just literally sit there openly. So the way that I teach people to do things is just the Goldilocks it. I say buy maybe not have to buy it straight out, but start with like a 75 watt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does your animal bask for like half an hour, warm up, and then go about their day? Cool, great, then you're sorted. If they sit there all day long, just not leaving the basking spot, doesn't matter what it is, that's telling you that it's not warming up its core.
Mm-hmm.
Then I say switch to 100 watt. And the reverse is true. If you've got the 75 watt and they're avoiding it like the plague, and they're trying to go near it, they try to sit in the periphery, but they're not going in the center. That's saying it's probably too hot. So go down to like a 50 watt. You can basically Goldilocks it. So you can say, yeah, that animal is being able to warm itself up and then go about its day. Like, it's not necessarily difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you can just see how they act and then be like, yeah, they can warm up.
Okay. So I see you're saying that you don't want to use more heat than the gecko's perfect Goldilocks zone is, but
they'll tell you.
But would you say it's bad though? So like in my example, like leopard geckos have access to probably the rocks in Iraq probably get 150 degrees if we're being honest. So technically leopard geckos have access to a hot spot of 150 degrees if they wanted, but they probably, maybe some of them in the wild use it. But like you said, in captivity, we see that the geckos Goldilocks zone appears to be 95, 96 degrees Fahrenheit. But would you say that it would be bad to provide a hotspot that is more if they're sitting on the edges? Why would that be bad? Wouldn't that just give them more flexibility to have higher temperatures if they want?
Well, if they never use it, they're never going to burn themselves, are they? So what's the difference?
Okay, so it's a health. You think that there's a, but they would never burn themselves in 110 to 120. It would take like 170 to burn an animal, right?
I don't know, but like if they feel it's too hot, that you won't see them basking in the center because they will just know it's too hot and move away, right? The reason why burns happen a lot, right? Here's the thing with heat lamps and stuff. When you have a heat lamp, right, and it's heating up a rock or something, that rock will get to the point where it's achieved the maximum amount of like heat it can get, and it stays at that temperature, right? As it's like releasing loads of heat at the same time, it gets this like equilibrium. If you have an animal that sits and basks, they get in between that rock and that heat lamp. So as soon as that animal sits on that rock starts cooling down underneath them because the access to the thing that's heating the rock is blocked. It starts cooling down. When you have things like heat mats and stuff, if you get that wrong, the animal can sit on a heat mat, and then of course it's being powered constantly. Then you can get burns because you get them like blocking it and it gets hot. It doesn't really happen with a heat lamp because of the fact that as soon as they get in between the heat lamp and the rock starts cooling down because they blocked it.
Yeah. Okay. That's
unless they get so close to a heat lamp that you can burn their backs and stuff. But that's like, don't give them like 2 inches away from a heat lamp.
Right. And I care very much about the reptiles not getting burned, and I don't think that anyone should necessarily like experiment and try this, but I'm sure there's been scientists out there that maybe have some research papers on what temperature does it actually require to burn a reptile. But I would imagine in my head it's got to be 150 plus. Like I can't see anything in the.
I think it would depend what it is. Like leopard geckos are so thin-skinned, I don't know. But then some things like Uromastyx, obviously, and Varanids and stuff, like the monitors, they can take it way hotter. So the way I see it is like, for me, a leopard gecko's basking spot could be anywhere from like 27 to like probably like 35, which is, I don't know what that is. That's 95 for the 35, and what that's like.
Yeah, that might be slightly over 100 or 105 or something like that. Maybe.
What's 27? 27C to F. That's like 80. 80 to 95. A leopard gecko is going to sit there and it's going to be able to warm up. They're such small mass animals. They're so tiny. They're going to be able to. So I am like, that big ballpark. And I'm the same with the air temperature. That big ballpark.
So question, based on what you just said right now, it's also a very condemned topic in leopard geckos to not give them at minimum 90 degrees. But what you just said a second ago, you said that they can actually digest at 80 degrees. Because I've heard other people talking about high 70s, low 80s. They've never had a problem with their gecko not digesting. Now, as a breeder, I've experimented with different temperature zones, and 95% of my animals can digest between 82 to 84 degrees. But there's like, that 5% that regurgitate under 82. But then sometimes there's the argument of maybe your animals just need to get used to a certain temperature. So they might regurgitate the first couple meals, but then if they realize they only have access to 80 to 82 degrees, their body will adapt, and they'll eventually adapt to digesting at those temperatures. What's your feedback?
Well, I'll tell you what the difference is. The difference is the infrared versus a heat mat. So yeah, my cork is sitting at like 27, right? Which is that 80. But when that leopard gecko sits there, it has that infrared going into it, right? So that's going to block off the cork, and that leopard gecko, the rays penetrate deep into the skin, right? It hits the blood vessels. So it literally like hits their blood vessels, warms up their blood, and that carries around. So the leopard gecko's core might be, I don't know what the optimum core, let's say the optimum core temperature is like somewhere in the low 90s. I don't know off by heart, but let's say that their core is up to scratch, but what they're sat on is actually like 27. But it's about the light hitting them and going into them rather than about like the temperature thing beneath them.
Okay.
Of course, they can sit on rocks and warm up that way from like belly heat. But when things are like a heat lamp going into them, it warms up literally their blood, their muscle tissue, all of it. Yeah. So the way that I view it is there's health properties to the heat lamp. The heat mat, literally they can warm up and down, and that's literally it. So the way I see it is you put a heat lamp over a rock or something, that rock turns into a heat mat anyway. So just by providing a heat lamp, you get a heat mat and heat lamp, because as soon as that heat lamp turns off at the end of the day, that rock, if you'd be surprised at how much a rock will hold into heat even throughout to the morning. There was one time I had my king snake's rock at 30 degrees at 8 p.m. when it turned off. I woke up at like 5 a.m. and it was like 28, so it dropped like 2 degrees. So you'd be surprised.
Yeah. And that's from sorry, just to be clear again too, when you said earlier that you think the basking bulb is just better than an infrared as a whole, does the basking bulb actually provide rays of infrared, like the deep penetrating heat like you're talking about?
That is what it does. Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that the rock was heated by whatever light you were using, the basking or the infrared bulb, so deep into the rock that it just made...
When I say infrared, I'm talking about the basking bulb. The weird like things with the projector things, they're not even in my sphere. I have 5 in a box somewhere collecting dust because I think they're crap.
Okay, so when you say infrared, you just mean like the bright white basking.
I'm talking about the heat that's coming off the heat lamp.
The heat, and that would be associated with, you're mainly using white bright lights to accomplish that, right? For you, just to clarify, I guess.
No, so what happens is when you have a heat lamp on, it's giving off that heat, right? And that's the infrared. Infrared is the type of the wavelengths that's coming off.
Invisible.
It isn't the brand, it's the type of thing. The brand just named the things infrared because they're trying to latch on to like what's sexy, right?
Yes.
That heat comes off, but also visible light comes off. That's how you can see it lighting up.
Okay. So
but also the invisible heat is coming from it as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't confusing it with you using those bulbs that I was talking about, like in my video, where it doesn't produce much light, but it says it produces infrared.
The projectors.
Projectors. Yeah. So you're using actual like shining lights along with that are also producing the infrared. When
old school bearded dragon basking lamp. That's what I'm talking about.
Old school bearded. There you go. That's a good way to
make it simple. Old school bearded dragon basking.
The bearded dragon's on the box still, just like basking under the
yeah.
Okay, cool. So pretty much your most common light that you see around, basking light that you see around the pet stores nowadays. That's amazing that it held heat for that long in the rock. So good for that. But okay, I thought I kind of detracted myself. I had a question I thought on what you were saying about. Anyway, I'll move on, and then if that question comes back, we can. So let me think here. Where do we leave off? So
I'm confusing you.
No, you're good. You're good. I was looking for clarification, and then I took myself on a rabbit trail, and I forgot what question I was going to ask. Oh, let me start with this then. And this will kind of start to branch us into, how does this translate and relate to the hobby? I'm sure you know Thomas KTD or whatever, right?
Damascus.
Damascus.
Yeah, I know Tom.
Sure, aren't you friends with him?
Yeah, I stayed around his house many times. Yeah, I know Tom.
Yeah, so he actually threw a pretty harsh criticism on my video, which he said, do not listen. For reference, I just did a video of a 40-gallon bioactive setup. I'll leave that in the link below. His comment was so harsh. It was, do not listen to the lighting advice in this video at all. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, it may not be the level of Thomas or the level of Rebecca from Leopard Gecko or the level of Liam, but I did not think it was at the level of do not listen to this lighting advice at all. Can you speak maybe to like what his concern
setup?
Yeah,
so
what
it was.
Were.
We all think the red lamps are shit, basically.
But I had it on during the day, and then I turned it off at night.
What I would have said is that I watched it, that setup with the UV and the heat lamp. If it was a regular heat lamp, I'd have been like,
okay.
It's just the red because.
But why? Why? You said it doesn't matter. It's just you said
it doesn't hurt them. They're living in like a photography room. Why would we assume that is like enjoyable, right?
But why would we assume white is enjoyable, especially when there's documentation out there that the geckos seem to come out more when there's red, or no, I shouldn't say
it's the bright light
yeah,
that makes them sleep properly. That's why.
but it's still, you said earlier in this video, it's still bright. So if you have a bright red light versus a bright white light, we can't ask the leopard gecko, hey, which light do you like better? We could only observe the leopard gecko and see, does it come out more under the red light or does it come out more under the white light? And again, you said your geckos come out under the white light, so I'm not going to take that away from you.
I'll explain it. So basically, during the day, they will see all of the colors, right? Mm-hmm. To see, so that they would associate white light with daytime equals what that does. It is melatonin that gets triggered and makes them sleepy. So it's the color vision, it's the brightness that triggers the melatonin cycle, which makes them sleepy. So in the same way that like darkness makes us sleepy, right?
Yeah.
If the room was weirdly like yellow or purple or something, but not dark, we wouldn't really be sleeping well, if that makes sense.
It would
so
throw
it's off-putting, basically.
It would throw us off. So you're saying the red light throws the geckos off?
I would assume so. Yeah.
But
it's their nighttime because it's inverse. Do you get what I'm saying? It's their melatonin cycle.
Their nighttime
is inverse to us.
Correct. Yeah. So then, if trying to think how to phrase this here.
Hormones. So, that's what it is.
No, you're good. I appreciate your feedback. Give it to me the harshest that you got it. I just may push back or challenge because I'm trying to really work through it in my brain. And I also want other people that maybe have these same questions to do so as well. The white basking bulb that we're talking about, that's like you're using for the geckos. We talked earlier in this episode that we don't really know, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. We don't really know exactly the way that we see white. That gecko may see it as gray, or they may see it as a different color, right? Is that correct to start there? They may see it differently than we see it, right?
They've got 4 cones, we've got 3.
They've got
when R3 is excited at the appropriate levels, we see white. The color white in vision doesn't exist. It's when red, blue, green cones. This is so advanced. This is going to turn your audience off.
No, you're good. You're good. But do it. Give it to us.
When all the cones are activated and stimulated at appropriate natural levels, you see white. But the white doesn't exist. It's the red, blue, and green. So the leopard geckos will see red, blue, green, and then the extra one, which is UVA. So when you have all 3 on during the day, they see white light. So they will see it as majority red, the same as us.
So they'll say, so they'll see it like we see it. So you're just saying that the red bulb would create a weird color that is abnormal to nature. And that's the main pushback with that, right?
That is the main pushback, yes.
But in combination with the UVB bulb, which is producing white light, I don't see why it would be such a bad thing in combination with the UV light, which
it depends, right?
Yeah.
When, let's say you have like a load of lights like pointed at a blank wall. Let's say I put on a green light, and you see a big green beam. Stick with me, there is a point I'm making. A big green wall, right? And then I turn on a red light. Mm-hmm. But that red light is 10 times more powerful as the green light. That wall is going to be completely red because it's overpowered everything. So when they see the red, it's just overpowering.
So how do you know it's overpowering? What research or peer-reviewed papers have shown that the red color is overpowering? Or are you just saying that because it's a very bright light compared to the UV, which is, they're 2 equally competing bright lights?
The UV isn't strong enough because there isn't enough visible light in UV to make a difference. When you pair it to like LEDs that are powerful, they can then outcompete and you see white light. I made a short where I had my heater, which is quite red. It's not, and I've turned on all the LEDs and you see white light off, everything's red, white light. So when you get the combination right and the lights are strong enough, that white lights, as we put it, Tom's going to kill me because it's not technically white light, but it's too advanced, Tom. It's too advanced. Dial it down. basically, you need strong enough lights like LEDs and stuff to overpower. The reason they see it overwhelmingly red is because it's overwhelmingly red.
Okay.
You can see it's flooding out of the tank onto your table. Like it's overwhelming. They will see it as red. It's red.
So, question on the UV, what you said a second ago. The UVB bulbs, which for anyone that doesn't know, it's the long bulbs that produce light over tanks nowadays. That appears very bright white to us, but are you saying that the geckos don't see that? Is that a wavelength they don't see, or I'm confused?
It's not bright. Your eyes just adjust. If you actually measure it using machinery, right?
Yeah.
Having a heat lamp in UV is like the equivalent of like 5 a.m. daylight outside. It's just because your eyes adjust to the inside and stuff, it looks bright. But if you actually like measure it, it might be like 5,000 lux. You go outside during the middle of the day in winter, and it will be nearly 100,000 lux. Like it is incomparable.
Okay, because I was just saying the way, like when I look at the tank, I see an equal blend, like my tank, the setup that I did. From my 3 cones, which, by the way, we should break down the cones real quick. Just for simplicity, the way that your eyes process light, there's something called cones in the back that take in certain colors of light and then filter that to like make you see what you're seeing, essentially. Is that just a dialed down dumb version of it?
Yeah, this is already too advanced. It's gone too advanced.
And leopard geckos have 1 more cone, right? So you're saying we have 3, they have 1 more. But you said just 2 seconds ago, you said that you would assume that they see things the way that we perceive the combination of like my UV setup of it. To me, it looks like a bright whitish, bluish light in combination with the red. I see that as a 50-50 blend. Like to me, when I'm looking at the cage, it looks like an even blend, but I'm confused. If
it wasn't an even blend, you wouldn't see red.
If it was an even blend, okay, but they can see the bright light, though, you're saying, but you're just saying they will additionally see the red, and that will also throw them off. But they can see the bright UV, because to me it looks bright, right? Like it's covering 24 inches of a 30-inch tank, which is a good amount of it, and it's shining downwards. They'll see that, but then they will also, just as brightly as I'm seeing it, to use the analogy, but then they will also see the red light in combination with that, and that will be like...
And because the red light is so much stronger, they see like the tank is red, because the tank is red. We're overcomplicating this. If the tank looks red, the tank's red. In a nutshell.
Yes, I got you. I'm just, to me, it looks like a 50-50 even blend. So when you say like it's so much stronger, like words like that, in my head, I'm like, are you saying they're not seeing the white level of light? Because to me, it looks 50-50, like the split of light. But you're just saying
it's not. You wouldn't see red. If it was actually, if it actually level up the levels that stimulate the cones to the right place, you wouldn't see red at all.
Okay, so to dial it down, it's a very strong red hue in addition to the strong white hue that is produced from the UVB bulb, just to kind of simplify that. And so the reason that's bad, or from your guys' perspective, the reason that's not optimal is that it's abnormal, right? Like we don't go outside and there's not like a red sun shining with a white sun or at the same time or something. So you're just saying it's abnormal to the natural evolutionary design of a leopard gecko, right? On Earth, right? Because there's other planets in the universe. I don't necessarily believe
it looks like an alien terrestrial. Like, I saw that. Yeah,
they might have multiple moons or multiple suns. I'm a big sci-fi guy, so I'm sure you've seen like there are certain sci-fi movies where they'll have multiple suns or something like that. In that case, it wouldn't be bad to simulate that on their environment because they're used to having 2 separate like coloring light sources or whatever, whereas on Earth we only have the one, so to speak, right? Is that
if you had a little alien, the planet was red and the light was red, it would be
would be all right. We'll sell them all our red bulbs then. So let's move. So I understand now the criticism regarding that. So let's move to next steps, because the big companies that we were just talking about a second ago that dominate this space, they are going to continue selling red bulbs, purple bulbs, blue bulbs, all these color heat bulbs that exist, ceramic bulbs, the new infrared that we were talking about that has like the little red like little tip and then produces the heat. So they're going to sell all that in addition to basking bulbs and whatever new technologies come out. What is the solution and or answer to trying to promote the most, I guess, naturalistic lighting setup for our critters?
It's just education, I think. I don't think there's nothing that you can do that's going to change what any company does. It's not within your power. So the only thing you can do is what is actionable. And the only thing that's actionable that's in either you or I's power is to make content that's educational. And then people either find it or they don't. That's all you can do.
And I wouldn't say actually, I'm looking for your opinion on this. So in my video that I made, I shut off the UVB and the red light to give the gecko a period of pure darkness, and I use the ceramic heat emitter. Now, like you said, we don't walk outside at night and get blasted by heat coming from the moon or something, right? So that is unnaturalistic, and it could be considered babying, soft playing our geckos, according to what you're talking about, them building up their immune systems and stuff. But are there any other reasons why it would be bad? Would you categorize it as bad, or would you just say that it's kind of
the ceramic's fine? Because the ceramic is just hot air. Because that's all. Right. The reason it didn't work for you, I'll explain how ceramic works. A ceramic is basically just a radiator. It's got a bit of metal that gets hot inside a ceramic case. The ceramic gets really hot and it just warms up the air around it. That's all it does. It's just hot air, right?
Okay.
So as you've got it in that dome, heat rises, right? So you've got hot air. It's coming down. It's going whoosh straight up again. So of course, hot air isn't going to heat the rock beneath it because it's not. It's just coming out again. You got a screen top. So they are really good for like solid top enclosures and stuff. I use them on like my white lip pythons and things like that. What I do is I have them.
Enclosure? What you said? Enclosed enclosures or what?
Solid top. It works really well. Like, it's something instative because I'll have it in that enclosure and I have it on a thermostat and I'll set it to like 20 for nighttime for the white lips because they are like really
inside the tank.
Inside, yeah. So what that means is after my heat lamp turns off and the thing starts to cool, once the air inside the tank gets to like 20, then it'll turn on the ceramic and it'll hold the tank at 20 because the ceramic is just heating the air and that warm air is obviously like getting to the point where it's reaching like equilibrium in that tank. Is staying at 20, the thermostat is reading at, and then it's just holding that ceramic at 20 so that I can control the air temperature using that. So they can be used daytime or nighttime. Let's say I want the air temperature to be X, I'll change the air temperature on the ceramic to be the minimum I want during the day, and then the halogen is going to do the basking spot.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So it's not as projecting of a source as like a basking bulb, you're saying.
Yeah. So the reason it wasn't heating up your rock because it was never going to, because it's just hot air. Just hot air.
But also I expected the red bulb on advertisement. It was a 150 watt bulb and it was only, I want to say maybe it was like 15 inches. Maybe it was like 14 inches away. It advertises that it should have been producing like 100-degree hotspot from like 15 inches away. And I think it was like 12 to 14 inches. I had it and it was still room temperature. Did I just not have
that? You can never put something on that on a box that's going to be accurate. For example, let's say we have the exact same lamp, right?
Yeah.
100 watts.
Okay.
You have one over a block of ice and then one over concrete. How are they going to be the same temperature?
True.
You can't. It's just. But what you can measure is the infrared output. So you can get a little device that measures the infrared output of the lamp, and you can just turn it on and measure it. But that's getting way advanced. Yeah. So the way that I teach people to do it is just to go by the behavior. But for example, you can never put like, oh, this ceramic's going to be this, because I saw you were like, but it says on the box. I'm like, the thing is, I don't know what I would even put on a box for a ceramic because it gets hot, it warms the air. Okay, what if I was in the Arctic? Okay, it could be 150 watts, but I could be that far away, my hand away from it. I'm still not going to feel it if it's minus 30 out in the Arctic. Like how hot is your room? Like, how much of the air has been sapped away? Like, you just can't.
There's a lot of variables. Now, when you use ceramic bulbs inside of the cage, will you have like a cage over the bulb so the
yeah, because they get really hot, like 300 degrees.
Yeah, when I temp gunned it, I think it was 305 on the ceramic bulb, and maybe it would have
ever touched that unguarded. That is third-degree burns instantly.
That is kind of crazy. Yeah, that's why I always warn my customers about, like, if this gecko's for a kid, be careful they don't take the light and like put it on the carpet. You know how like you'll take the light off the top of the tank and put it on the carpet facing down. But that's what I like about the front opening cages is you never have to technically touch the bulbs above. You could just open the cage. So that's really cool. And now they're making like 10 gallons, 15 gallons, 20 gallons that are all front opening, which is kind of cool.
One of the things that people don't realize, right, is the screen on top of it. Depending how like fine and stuff, it blocks a lot of light. So some of them will block like 60%. I think the Thrive ones before they changed it blocked it like 60%. So you could have the box might say this for UV, but it's 60% less because of the type of mesh you got it on. So Extra Terra is around sort of like 30%. The custom Reptile Habitat used to have this hexagonal mesh, which was like 23% blockage. So all of that plays a role as well.
No, you're right. And the screen on that 40 gallon that I had was actually like, it was pretty thick screen on the top compared to some of the thinner meshier type screens I've seen. So let me look at my list here and kind of see. So we talked about education. Dr. Frances Baines, for anybody that really wants to take a deep dive, she's somebody you would suggest looking into her research. Is that correct? If I understand correctly, she's got good knowledge on everything. So there's really only a few people. I know Thomas has a YouTube channel now. Thomas, is it KTD or TKD or something? Damascus.
This is his own fault because it was some like childhood nickname that he named it. I was like, don't call it that. No, I can't even. Every time I search up his channel or search up his website, I have to have it bookmarked because there's no way I'm typing it in. There's no way I'm finding it. It's so annoying. Tom, sort it out.
And there are other topics that maybe we could do on a future interview, light related. But is there anything regarding specifically, potentially, before we move on or something, is there anything regarding like the red bulbs or the feedback of Damascus towards me or something that we didn't touch on that you want to touch on?
I mean, Tom's just being facetious.
Yeah,
he's just being facetious. Like, for me, the simplest way to do it is heat lamp, UV, and you're pretty much sorted. You can do an LED if you want as well, but if you're worried about things that are albino and stuff and they're making extra bright, I think a heat lamp and UV and you're pretty much set.
And you would recommend approximately a 12 on, 12 off cycle, something like that?
Yeah, that's what I do. I'll keep it nice and simple. I mean, you can stagger it a little bit. Like I said, you can have like the UV on for 12 hours and then like the heat lamp on for 8 hours. Sorry, the reverse. The heat lamp on for 12 hours and the UV on for 8. So that there's like some hours where it's just like the orange light from that heat lamp. So it's like a sunset vibes, and see them come out when it's a little bit like less bright with the UV off and stuff. Okay. But for the most part, honestly, it's all on one timer. It all goes off. This entire stack is on one timer. It all goes off. Like there's a point where there's a bit of like realistic expectations and whatnot.
Yeah, I was emailing Damascus a while back about because I have 13 Celebensis and Microlophus, like pretty much adult/subadult sailfin dragons now. So I was talking to him about lighting and getting, it's a lot. They take up 2 rooms, 2 9x9 rooms. And that's me using an efficient setup. Like I wouldn't say they're in a small setup by any means. The cage is like, 6 foot tall, 3x3 for one. I keep them all in individual cages. Would I like to give them more? Yes, but like it gets me by for having 13 of them, so to speak. But I was talking to him about like some UV lighting and heat lighting that we were talking about, like the halogen lighting and stuff like that for the sailfin. So I do have some interaction with him, but then when he dropped that comment on my video, like at least he didn't say don't take any of the advice from this video at all. It was just don't take the lighting advice. But I thought the criticism was a bit harsh considering the fact that, like we talked about, red bulbs are bought and sold just as much as white bulbs in the hobby. And this will lead us to the next topic, is what happens with human beings is we get very tribalistic. When you have situations where somebody, like, I got nothing against Thomas, but when you have somebody like Thomas that says a comment in a way like that, it starts turning people into tribes, and then people start condemning each other. And then, kind of like we talked about before the stream, people start making stuff up about each other and go into the extremes of creating a toxic, negative hobby. So, like, what is your thoughts on that, I guess? Or,
I mean, I can't speak for Tom.
yeah,
All I can say is my opinion on like how I navigate the internet. The way I see it is I can't control anyone else's behavior. So there's no point in me being upset or like, because so many people are like, you look on TikTok, it's just, oh Christ.
yeah,
So they're like, they get upset because I can't control what that person does and what that person says, and they get really like frustrated about it, and they get like really like weird about it. It's never in your control, so there's no point stressing about it. All you can control is what you say and what you do. So all you can do as a creator, for example, is you can put out your advice to your audience, and what another creator says, not in your control. So what's the point worrying about it?
So more like a free market rather than a controlled market, so to speak, as far as content goes. But I'm sure you would like to see more people promoting the ideals of progressive lighting knowledge for reptiles. But you also understand that there's going to be other videos out there that are doing the opposite. But what you're saying is they'll always be there. Just let them do what they do. You don't need to.
What can I do about it? All I can do is just make my videos.
Yeah.
It's a bit of Marcus Aurelius. It's a bit of like stoicism. It's like if you can't control it, there's no point stressing about it.
Oh, is there a certain Marcus Aurelius line you're thinking of, or
yeah, what is it? In a nutshell, the vibe is if you can't control it, what's the point worrying about it?
Was that
from I can't.
The first Gladiator movie? Is that what?
No, from the actual person. But yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. In a nutshell, if you can't control it, what's the point? I can't control it. So, like. Yeah. Like I used to like get like wound up by things, and I got to the point where it's like, well, what does it matter? Like all I can do is teach people the way that I think works, and they either want to listen to it or not.
Yeah,
that's what the search bars find. They either find my content or they don't.
And I actually think that will produce more change over time, because what happens, human beings being tribalistic and stubborn as a whole, when somebody tells you you can't do something or you shouldn't do something, people are going to push the boundaries of doing that very thing, or just doing it just because you told them they can't do it. So if the opposite result of that is, okay, look, you could do that, but here's why I think that this is a better way, and this is my perspective on this, and you're actually providing like data and research and knowledge, and there's studies out there to show and kind of back your side of things, eventually that person's perspective will die out, because the more commonly progressive held perspectives with data and research will start to become more accepted and common. But when you create this tribalism of like, we are over here and you are over there, it just creates bigger tribes, bigger echo chambers of people believing what they believe in separate camps and not relenting, so to speak. You know, it becomes like a pride base.
Yeah, I just see it as like, I'm either thinking very logically, and the logic speaks for itself because everyone is like, that makes sense, or they don't listen to it. And it's my fault for not being good at arguing my positions. And if I can't argue my position correctly, then maybe it wasn't a good idea.
Or it's rubbish. Is that what do you guys say rubbish over there?
Or it's rubbish. Yeah.
Is that a different place? Okay.
Yeah, cool. I think it's very simple. It's very simple. Like for example, that person got upset with you in that comment that I saw, and it's like, yeah, I don't know what you got up to. I don't care what you got up to. I can't control it, but I can tell you my opinions on lighting. And what I'll do is I'll give you my opinions on lighting. I'll toddle off back to my sofa after this, and then you can take it or leave it. Like what is the point in stressing?
Yeah, I think too many people compartmentalize the issues or problems they have with people, and they have a difficult time separating that from the fact at hand or whatever you're trying to collab on in the moment. So like maybe in some cases somebody has, such a bad name attached to them or whatever, and you're aware of that, and you think that it may not be good for you to do an episode with them. We see this in politics all the time, although now politics has become more dramatics. It's almost just like the biggest drama you could drum up gets you the most votes and attention, so to speak. So it'll be interesting to see where that route goes. But yeah, us dealing with animals and the lives of animals, we're in a very sensitive hobby and very sensitive. Yeah, we're in a very sensitive hobby. It would be nice to see more people try to set aside the differences that they may have with people. And I honestly think that the more that you give reasons for people to listen to you and to hear the things that you're saying, the more that's going to get ingrained in somebody's mind. But when you make enemies with somebody, it just creates clear dividing walls, and then it creates clear dividing like stances in the hobby. And so I would like to see the reptile hobby there's human beings.
Chill out. There you go.
Yeah, chill out. The reptile hobby is full of human beings, and human beings love to pick sides, and they love to pick tribes, so to speak. But for what it's worth, people, whoever's listening, please just try to like set your differences aside with people. Get to know people for who they are, and not based off of what other people have said, because sometimes other people do not say correct things or the best things about people behind their back and whatnot. And I think we could have a better hobby that actually, like, getting on this podcast. I know you had expressed to me that like somebody was like, oh, you shouldn't do an episode with Frank. But now look at us, and you actually got to speak your good. Like, I view you as somebody who has good information, and you got to actually communicate that good information on a channel that somebody was telling you that you shouldn't go on. So it's like, I view that as a win for the hobby. It's so confusing to me how even my haters or people who don't like me for whatever reason, how they would view that as like a net negative. I don't get it. I think people are just tribalistic, and once they don't like you, it's like they don't like you, and no matter what you do, you can't win with them. But I've been rambling. So.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's like, okay, so you were like, oh, I want to make sure like I can talk to my customers and help them. Because I assume like you do a lot of racks, right? So I assume you're way more comfortable with racks and how to heat them and stuff like that.
Racks. Yeah, I breed and keep in racks, but I promote cages for customers.
Exactly. Well, a lot of what the raw python or ball python people do is that they keep in racks, and then when someone has trouble with like the heating and lighting or maintaining temperatures in an enclosure, they don't know how to help them because they don't know how to keep it in the enclosure.
True. Very true.
So it's a skill set that every breeder should have, because you need to be able to help your customer, and you need to be able to set up the animal to succeed, right? I can keep in racks. I can keep a leopard gecko an entire room and heat the temperature of the room to what I want to be, because it's not hard. It's all a box, whether it's this big or this big. Like, it's not difficult. So
that's actually, yeah. Go ahead, finish it.
I don't know what I was going to say, to be honest. I was in the flow.
You are going, but actually, that's what I was going to say. Is it's been, I don't know, 5+ years since I set up an actual tank for a leopard gecko. So when I was setting up the tank in this most recent video, it kind of felt brand new to me. And that's apparent when we got to the heating section, because I was like, wait, these are 150-watt bulbs. Like, for a 40-gallon tank, these should be producing 100-degree hotspot from 16 inches away, because that's what customers are doing. I tell customers, put branches or something under the heat bulb so the gecko can kind of thermal regulate, because you never know. Most customers do not have like a high level of knowledge of how heating works and stuff. So I would rather them be safe and the animal has access to get warmer and cooler as it needs. But honestly, I was so thrown off and shocked that this 150-watt bulb, which is usually the highest wattage bulb at the retail stores. I know you can get higher, like on Amazon for chickens, they have like 250 watts and stuff. But for reptiles, mostly, we only see 150 watt as the max. And I'm like, I couldn't even get it to 100 degrees for a leopard gecko in a 40-gallon tank. What if someone's using a 100-gallon tank for a bearded dragon or something? And I'm just thinking, like, this is crazy that this wasn't heating more for like our biggest heat bulb, so to speak, it on the retail shelf in the hobby. But It just so going back to what you said, breeders need to have this knowledge of bioactive setups and whatnot. And I'm sure you're super annoyed with this. For anybody who doesn't know, Liam and friends have been on a very big promotion in the hobby recently to show that ball pythons appreciate the space. They appreciate having a setup where they can climb and all those kinds of things. And you've been showing and demonstrating that in a lot of your videos recently. But I've heard a lot of feedback from like ball python keepers that will buy like a baby ball python and then they'll set it up in a cage with like different hides and stuff. And then they'll go back to the breeder and be like, oh, the animal's not eating. And the breeder's solution is put it in a 6-quart tub. You know what I mean? Like put it in a 6-quart tub and it will eat. Now, the answer is yes, it will eat. But don't you understand that like your customer doesn't want to put it in a 6-quart tub, number one. And number two, they may not have the ability to. They don't have a rack system like you do with a heating pad that's set up with a thermostat that's not going to burn a hole through the plastic and stuff. So it just really stuck out to me what you said a second ago. Breeders need keeper knowledge, or else you are not going to have the answers that your customers need when they come to you with problems with a 40-gallon setup not producing heat and whatnot. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you saying that, and I think that breeders do need to have more knowledge on that. So
there was an example recently where it was like a king snake one, and he was like, these guys, they're using heat lamps, and it's like, you can't even put a heat lamp on a thermostat. And I'm like, which decade are you from? Like,
which decade are you from? Cool, man. So
just shows they don't know, isn't it?
Yeah, so glad that we got to have this episode. I would definitely love to, have you back on in the future to talk about future things, because I think, not only do I think, I know that you and your associates like Damascus and Dr. Francis Baines, Animals at Home podcast, even Wiccan's Wicked Reptiles, and other people who I haven't named, Jessica's Animal Friends, like all of you guys that have like a great head on your shoulders to try to encourage the highest enrichment and level of care for our reptiles. You guys are greatly outnumbered right now by actually there's a transition happening right now where you guys are becoming the popular trend, but the breeder mentality or the low enrichment mentality was so popular for the last 20, 30 years on YouTube. It's sort of being overshadowed now by the higher enrichment community such as yours that is coming in with what is the most we could do for our reptiles. But there's still obviously way more content from the past out there, from older, outdated knowledge that is competing against you guys, that I would just like to see the knowledge and the work that you guys have put in. I would like to see that start to overshadow that, you know what I mean? And start to make that change and that turn of the century, so to speak, with newer knowledge, which I think I don't know what your observation is, but I think it's happening. I see more content creators and more people not showing tubs anymore, except for ball python people, because that'll probably be, that's forever an investment market. And so that's a whole nother topic we could cover. But as far as the keeper side of things goes, I see way more people excited about, hey, what's the highest level enrichment that I could keep this animal in, instead of what's the lowest level enrichment I could keep this animal in. And I think you guys are pioneering that, and I would love to do my part as a content creator just to get your opinions out there and more active on the internet, you know what I mean? So do you see that change happening as well? And
I suppose so. I mean, I don't really you see my associates, I think the only one that I'm really friends with is Tom. Everyone else, I speak to Wickens now and again. I don't know what everyone else gets up to. All I can say is that I recommend what I recommend on my own channel, and that's what I stick to. But yeah, I think that a lot of my people are using UV for snakes and things like that. I actually think a lot of people are going overboard. A lot of people, people younger than me, that are kind of trying to push for enrichment and things like that. A lot of them get to the point where it's extreme, where it's it has to be bioactive or you don't care about your animal. And I'm like,
right.
These aren't bioactive.
Yeah.
There was one tank here, a tank of little morning geckos that's bioactive. Nothing in this room is bioactive.
Yeah, I heard. So you know how in the past it used to be 10-gallon is minimum for a leopard gecko. Then people were like, "Oh, you're an abuser if you have a leopard gecko in a 10-gallon." Then it became like 40-gallon is minimum for a leopard gecko. The other day I heard someone saying like, "If you're keeping it a 40-gallon, you're abusing your leopard gecko." And I'm just thinking to myself like, where are we going with where are we going with this type of logic? And also another thing too that I see is there are a lot of keepers that want to do the most for their let's say leopard geckos, because that's the world I'm primarily in. They want to put their leopard gecko in a 100-gallon tank, and that's all great and stuff, but who are you buying geckos from? You're buying geckos from breeders that are keeping in 10 to 12 quart tubs for their leopard gecko. So you also have to understand that you can't condemn the people that you're buying from, because you're only supporting what they're doing by buying their animals. And I just think it's the weirdest hypocritical thing where breeders or keepers are like, yeah, unless you're keeping in a 40-gallon or above, you're abusing your animal. But then they'll turn around and they'll go buy a leopard gecko from a breeder that's keeping it in like a 10-quart plastic tub with no enrichment. And I'm just like, you're actually contributing to the problem that you're condemning right now, if you really think about it. So like, we just need to get along and then promote our positive ideas like you're talking about. And I think more breeders will change as they see that there is a demand for higher level enrichment. Breeders will want to do that for their animals more to be perceived in a better way and show off their collections. Nobody wants to not show off a collection. So my goal as a breeder right now is I want to be able to walk into my breeder room with a camera and people aren't going to freak out. And your average breeder cannot do that because they have animals in tubs and low enrichment settings and all those kinds of things. Your average person is going to be like, you're keeping an animal in a shoebox? Like what is going on here? That's just like the natural default perception. And so it will be nicer for breeders to up the ante and up their game. But that's definitely not going to happen when people are pushing you away and condemning you for the current state that is acceptable. You know what I mean? I don't know what your thoughts or opinions might be.
I think that you have to do the best that you think you can do and try your best. Apart from that, there's always going to be someone that's got to complain about something. I had someone comment literally yesterday that my 7x2x2 was too small for my bearded dragon. So it's like, that's 7 feet. 7 feet. Yeah, it's too small.
What do they want? A bedroom for your vision?
I don't know, but that's what I mean. Like, you want to say like people be a breeder that people won't get upset with. It's like people comment on my stuff and get upset with things. So I don't think you're searching for something that won't exist. I think you can get to a degree where people aren't like, oh my god, about something. If there's something that you do that you're like, people are like, oh my god, you can get past the point of that. But I think no one's ever gonna, like, every single person thinks that you're like, because someone will complain about something. I think breeding in general, people will never understand breeding. Like, a massive part of breeding is culling. You want to have that conversation?
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And I was talking with another leopard gecko breeder on this topic recently because we were going to cover that topic in an interview. But then he said something which I actually think is pretty wise, and it has me. So I'm a very open book, which has gotten me in trouble a lot. We talked about this a little bit. Why there's why some people hate me and why there's certain drama circles that like to hate on me and stuff like that. You didn't really know what it was, but we briefly touched on it but before this happened. But oh shoot, I lost my thought. Sorry, what were you talking about a second ago? You said
culling.
Oh, culling. So I was going to talk about that in an episode with him publicly. And I always used to be a very public person with my knowledge and information because I think it's helpful for people to have this information. But what he said was some people aren't ready for some topics. Some topics are mature, behind the scenes topics. So I could say in a video, for example, like I'll say right now, if anybody needs to know as a breeder how to cull a leopard gecko the quickest and most euthanize it the quickest, message me behind the scenes and I'll talk to you. Instead of my perspective on it before was just tell people how to do it. Just give them the public information. But what happens is you then become misconstrued and taken out of context, or you get viewed as somebody who like doesn't care about the animals. You know what I mean? It just so I don't know what your opinion is on this, but some topics like the culling of animals that need to be culled, it's better that those take place behind the scenes rather than publicly explaining how to put an animal to death on an interview. You know what I mean?
But that's the thing. I don't think breeding in general, there is so much to it. Whether, like, honestly, mate, the conversations that we could have about breeding, but
yeah, for sure.
But things that I just think that you just got to get on with it. You just got to get on with it and be like, show yourself trying your best. If you feel like you generally are doing good, and you are at a point where you think people aren't going to be upset and stuff, then just keep pushing, upgrade where you want to upgrade. If you know that yourself that you are doing the best you are, because let's be honest, most people, they're doing something, they're like, I could do that better. They just don't say it.
Yeah,
so if you generally feel that you couldn't do something better, then you should be happy with yourself. And that's what people get up to is their business. I'm not trying to stick my nose in things anymore. Like I used to get upset. Now I'm not.
You don't think cancel culture is helpful to actually increasing progressive change in the reptile hobby?
No. I think you should vote with your wallet.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Promote what you want to promote. Show how you believe things should be kept, and then inspire people to like try and have that as a goal in their mind. And that's pretty much it. You can't. I mean, things like laws of animal abuse and things like that. Like, yeah, there is a point where people should be prosecuted and stuff, but like that is beyond the scope of cancel culture. That is like actual laws being broken. That's criminality. Like that's a different subject. But
so
chill the fuck out, basically.
Kind of putting a bow on this whole red light topic.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that.
yeah. One of the reasons in my video, I don't know if you saw. Thank you for watching the video. I was actually surprised. I don't know if you watched all of it, but you made it was an hour video. And so when you commented on the light section, I was like, dang, that's like 30 minutes in. So I don't know if you watched most of it or all of it or whatever, but appreciate the watch, appreciate the comment.
No worries.
But in that video, one of the things that I said about red bulbs is I think it looks so extraterrestrial and alien-like when you shut the lights off in your room and you have a red light on at night and you throw some crickets in there and you could watch the gecko like hunting the crickets. You could do the same with a white bulb, but there's just something about the red bulb that gives it a more enjoying feeling to me. Would you say that it would be highly criticized of me if I was telling people, hey, if you want to enjoy that experience of seeing your leopard gecko in like a red alien-like environment hunting at night, would you say it would be bad for me to recommend to people that they could have a red light on for just 3 hours at night while the gecko is hunting and digesting its food, and then you shut that red light off? Would you say that that would be a terrible advice tip for me to give people, or what you think that would be okay?
Do what you want, mate. Like I mean, for me, I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, when these goes off, I will have the big light on the room and I'll feed them. And they'll come out and like the light in the room will be on, and that's how I do it. But you can recommend what you want at the end of the day, and like it's not my circus, not my monkeys.
In that case, you technically don't even need a red heat bulb. You could just use any red coated bulb or blue, or if somebody likes blue or purple. I know you're not. I don't want to get you saying that you're promoting this because that goes against your personal.
He's trying to clip me, guys. He's trying to clip me.
You heard it here. It's okay for 3 hours, but no, I was just honestly, I guess, looking for your thoughts on that because I'm torn now. I'll be honest with you. After this conversation, I'm torn in my mind between recommending the red bulb to people and not recommending it based off of what we discussed as far as the red light being sort of like a let me give you my final thoughts and you critique me as hard or not as hard as you want. My final thoughts on the
go.
My final thoughts on the red bulb is it seems like it comes down to the simple fact that the red light is abnormal to a leopard gecko because leopard geckos come from the wild, which does not have a red light. So it seems more of a superficial thing to me rather than something that can actually hurt the gecko or damage the gecko. I could muse on this a little bit more, but your thoughts on what I just said there a second ago.
think for the most part, I don't agree that things need to be natural. The only thing I do think that I do aim for natural is lighting, because
Okay.
it has so much to do with the body, their hormones, even like the endorphins in their skin. I think we don't know enough. So the thing is to try and replicate the sun as best as you can, and whatever's going to happen in their body that we don't know about is going to happen. And I'd rather give something and not know that I've done it, but have done it, than not done it, if that makes sense. So lighting, yeah, in terms of like natural, and things have to be like, you have to have plants, it has to be this, then I don't disagree. I disagree, because in certain aspects, I don't. Natural is a fallacy.
Okay. And I know I heard Dr. Francis talk about this with the Animals at Home podcast. I'm sure you're aware of this. If I understood correctly too, on that episode, she showed a chart of the spectrum of sunlight from outside, and you could see all the different like color lengths going through it. And then she overlaid that with like mercury vapor bulbs, basking bulbs, and like the levels of lighting that those produce. And if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, the sun still in of itself as a one solo light, the sun in of itself is drastically like so much better than any like one light that we have ever created in captivity, right? So that's why we use multiple combinations of light to try to mimic the different spectrum that the sun produces. So we'll use UVA, we'll use UVB, and I think you even said there's like UVC and D, I think, if I remember her saying something, right? Or
UVC is just for like UVC doesn't make it into the Earth's atmosphere. It's
okay.
It basically kills things. So that's what you have for like sterilizing water and water treatments and things like that. There's no UVB, there's no UVD.
Okay. And one thing that I actually really like that she said too was because it's really common with, I always recommend heat bulb rather than heat mat for our customers. And one of the simple, I'm going to learn more about these topics as I talk to people like you and watch people like your kinds of videos that have the knowledge and research. But just from a simple observational perspective, if you put your hand on a heat mat, okay, it feels warm. But if you put your hand under a basking heat bulb, there's something else happening, something like tingly in your skin. Something actually feels good under this spectrum of light. And it's like
radiation.
Radiation. You may not be able, your average person may not know or be able to explain what that is, but there is a difference there. So I've always told people, go with a heat bulb rather than a heat mat. But heat mats are very commonly recommended for leopard gecko cages. It's just kind of part of what it is. But I recommend to people heat bulbs just because prior to talking to you and like watching Dr. Francis Baines and stuff, I just always thought that it's more natural, right? The sunlight comes from above, heat comes from above, and there's just something to the way the light feels. So that was always my default. I went off on a tangent. I forget what I was going to say again, but do you remember what you said last by chance?
No, but there's something I will say though, is the way that I teach people is like, it's cheaper. Because if you give right a heat lamp over a rock or a hide, they can either get on top of the hide and sit under the heat lamp as if they're sunbathing, right? Or they go into the hide that's been heated by the heat lamp and they've got a heat mat anyway. You've just got it for free.
Yes, you get the full.
You get 2 for 1.
Everything. Yeah.
Then you have choice. Choice is the main thing about all of this.
Yes, you do get choice. We were talking about I think we were talking about spectrum of lighting. So like the heat light. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So not only was she talking about the UVA helping I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but she was talking about like the basking light. Let's just call it the bearded dragon basking light, because that's what most people know it as, instead of the terms like UVA and stuff. So the bearded dragon basking light actually like penetrates deeply into like the muscles of the animals, and it can even help with like healing and stuff like that for reptiles that have wounds or something, right?
They even use it in the medical field, right? So like they will literally have like a really intense little beam in a little like almost like a little pencil where it's infrared, and they can use it to like heal wounds and things like that.
So it's just a good. It's way better than a heat pad. It's just a good.
And it has properties for like de-aging as well. That's why like people have like those like infrared face masks to like deal with like de-aging and stuff. Back when they switched from old school heat just like light bulbs to like LED and things like that, or energy saving, they were concerned about old people because they weren't getting the infrared from the heat. That's there's studies that show in mice and stuff that just by actually having access to that infrared that it can extend lifespan.
Yeah, and just in case people are tuning in now, the infrared is the invisible light, the invisible energy that you don't see that comes from lights, basically, right? Like the sun, or in this case, the basking bulbs. It's like did you say it was longer? Is it longer wavelengths infrared, or is it shorter? It's shorter. Okay. But it is invisible, right? Like to our eyes, so to speak, or is it visible?
We can't. So if you had a LED spotlight, that was right next to a heat lamp, and they were just as bright, the heat lamp's hotter than putting your hand under the LED, because infrared just light and infrared, which is the bearded dragon basking lamp, right? It's bright and infrared versus just bright, right? That's the difference. The infrared.
Here's a geeky knowledge question for geeky geckos: is why doesn't the LED produce infrared? I guess they're both light, right? So is it just like the filaments in the light that actually causes it to produce infrared versus not produce infrared? Or
it's where it is on the spectrum, right? So the way that we have to make infrared is by you heat a filament, and then that glows red hot, and that gives off infrared, right? So you heat something to the point where it gets so hot it gives off infrared. A bonfire gives off infrared too. Right? Whereas the LEDs, they don't do that. They just give off the light. And then when they drive it through something called a phosphor, and it drives it through that phosphor, and that changes the wavelengths into like different colors and stuff. It's getting very technical now, isn't it?
I told you guys we were going to have someone smart on today, didn't I? So as far as the hobby goes, I definitely consider you as one of the pioneers for pushing for reptile research, which is, shout out your channel, Reptiles and Research, and you definitely live up to that name. So the last thing I was going to say was, not only is infrared and like the bearded dragon basking bulbs good for healing, but Dr. Baines also said something I hadn't thought of prior, but now it makes a lot of sense. UVB is used for killing viruses and bacteria and stuff like that. We even use it in the human hobby. So I don't know. Are you familiar? The human hobby. The human world. Yeah, sometimes I say crazy stuff like that. But have you ever been to Iguana Land in Florida with Ty Park? It's Ty
Never
Park.
Been to the US.
Oh, duh. Yeah, you haven't. So have you heard of it, though? So
I've heard of Ty Park.
Ty Park has this massive reptile. It's called Iguana Land. In his bathroom, he has UVB, like he has UV light that when you put your hand like under the soap dispenser, it like hits it with UV, because UV is meant to kill bacteria and viruses and stuff like that. So I just connected those 2 points. But when Dr. Baines was talking about how when you don't provide UVB for your reptiles, they are lacking that extra light to be able to help them fight against like bacteria and viruses and stuff. So that's just another good reason to promote UVB for like leopard geckos per se, because leopard geckos, ball pythons, a lot of boas are often promoted without UVB, and they're often just promoted with like heat pads and stuff. But if you want to take the next step up, UVA and UVB, UVA would help with like healing wounds or just feeling good to the animal, and UVB would actually help with minimizing bacteria and viruses and stuff, right? Did I miss anything from that?
Well, look at what happens. You said it. You said UVA, but you meant infrared A. It's fine. Look what happens when snakes come out of like hibernation stuff. They'll come up with blisters and things like that. The first thing I'll do is go sunbathe because the infrared A, the infrared is healing. The UVB is slightly bactericidal, it's virucidal, so they're obviously like cleaning their skin slightly. And then they're like topping up their vitamin D, and vitamin D is important to the immune system, so they're strengthening their immune system whilst healing, whilst drying out. Like these things all evolved under the sun, which is this free resource.
Right.
All life evolved under the sun, which is the free resource. So all of our bodies are designed to use it, because why would you not use it? It's free.
Man, so that's awesome, because one of the things that I do is if I need to, like, let's say I pick up a tank secondhand or something, I'll clean it with like soap, like Dawn dish soap and stuff, but then I'll always sunbathe it just in case. Like I'll sunbathe it because I know that the UV rays help to kill any viruses, bacteria, stuff that's on there. And so when she said that about UV being in the cage with the animal, it just made so much more sense about how that can help to have a cleaner environment and a healthier animal just from that alone. And I'm sure you've heard of this, but I've listened to other reptile breeders that have converted from like rack setups. The breeder that comes to mind was on the Animals at Home podcast, and he talked about breeding blue-tongued skinks in a rack setup.
Houston. Yep, I know him.
And so he was breeding blue-tongued skinks in a rack setup with like heat pads and no UV lighting, no infrared lighting or anything. Then he changed them over to cages with like UV and UVA and infrared and stuff. And he immediately saw the production and the fertility of his animals go up and stuff. So there's also that side of things where if your animals feel better and are better, they're also going to produce better. So like there is a benefit to it, even from a breeding perspective like that we can promote too. So
what happened with that guy is I don't know, I'm paraphrasing because it was like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
He had like 80 skinks in litter out of like 10 animals or something. And then he was like, I don't want to produce that many this year, the next year. So he went to like 5 breeding females. And that was the year he gave them UV and stuff. And then he got 80 from 5 females. So he doubled his production because it's amazing, isn't it? But then there's a similar story with like my king snakes. There was one year they came out of brumation and they were like all like sneezing. They're like every now and again. It wasn't like a major RIs. It was just like chit. So I was like, yeah, they'll basket off, and they did. They basked it off. Yeah.
No, I've seen that happen as well with like tegu species and stuff. You know, because tegus are a brumating species as well. And I've had a lot of tegus over the years and brumated a lot of tegus. And every once in a while, you'll see like a little wheezing or something during the wintertime because they're not basking, they're not doing anything. Then in the summertime, they go out there, like within the first week or so, they're like fully cured up, good to go, like no wheezing, no nothing, breathing normal. You know what I mean? So I've seen that exactly play out with some of my tegus over the years of brumation. But
yeah, like even the breeding is so important. Even like things like leopard, right? I don't think you're going to drastically increase clutch yield from giving UV, but what you will get is faster recovery in females. And you have hatchlings come out better and healthier because as that albumin goes into that egg, all the vitamin D that's circulating in the blood of that breeding female goes into that egg, and vitamin D is used in the contraction of muscle. So when you have animals that have like low vitamin D and they don't have like UV and stuff, sometimes the babies can like struggle to like hatch and stuff because they don't have enough in them to like do the muscle contraction. So why would you not give them UVB, which makes them make unlimited amounts of vitamin D that they want? It's basically having it on tap. You basically set this whole entire thing to automation, right? And then those babies have maxed out vitamin D like they're supposed to. They're strong, they're vigorous. All the yolk and the albumin is literally all about vitamin D and stuff. And then the recovery of that female is faster as well in terms of like, because she put all of her values that are circulating in her blood into that egg, right? And then she can immediately top it up and go bask in that and top up her levels. So it's like with breeding, so many breeders are like, I don't need that. I'm like, why? It's the most important. Money is why. I mean, like, sometimes it's impractical, but in terms of like hardcore breeding, everything you do, whether it's nutrition or lighting, matters in the final product you make.
Yeah, and that's as a breeder, one of the things that I'm going to promote more now too is I think there's, especially when COVID hit, there was a big boom in the reptile hobby for investment. People thought that they could breed animals and print them like money and it would be a get rich quick scheme. And then people quickly found out that all the breeders you're buying animals from are light years ahead of you. People are going to buy from them and not buy from you. And then people dump their collections because they were getting overwhelmed with animals and they couldn't sell them at a pace that made sense for them and they were losing money. So one of the things that when I went into breeding, and this is a mistake I made that I'm going to talk about on a future episode with another breeder, but if I could go back and change this, one of the mistakes I would make, I made is at first when I was breeding, I lost my job during COVID, and then I went into breeding full time because I had a bunch of animals already. And what that did was that put the pressure on me to make more animals because I needed more animals to actually create an income now. And so I would recommend nobody starts breeding that way because it's the most stressful way to do it. And you're going to cut a lot of corners to try to get the amount of finances that you need to sustain the operation at first. So one of the things that I'm going to push for people to do is reptiles is by far the number one not most get rich quick scheme. Some people may get really, really lucky and all the cards align and it just lines up perfectly where they make some investments and they get some great return on investments. 99% of people are not that person. And so what winds up happening is the animals just wind up suffering and having lower enrichment and lower standards than would be nice to see the animals in for breeders that are beginning. So that's my number one promotion now is do not think of animals at all as a get rich quick scheme or a money scheme. They can make you money and they can make you rich, but it's not going to be by cutting corners and it's not going to be quickly at first. So keep a daytime job, a part-time job or a full-time job and do it on the side, grow it slowly. And now with the technology that we have, my number one recommendation to people is try to give them the best enrichment that you reasonably can from the start. Just because I think that you are going to enjoy that more as a keeper, as a breeder, and you will have a good reputation and a good name for somebody in the hobby who is like coming in and doing things to the best of your ability that other people maybe aren't doing, and you'll have nothing to be ashamed of. So like that's the angle that I am promoting now, which is not an angle that I was promoting necessarily with my earliest videos and stuff, which is what I received a lot of criticism for at first. But, you know, after years of doing it that way, I can tell you from experience, there's not a lot of joy and enrichment for you as a human in it when you're seeing your animals in lower enrichment settings than you would like to see them in. So just start with the higher enrichment settings from the start. And kind of like you were saying a second ago, one of the benefits to that is your animals will be happier. They're probably going to give you better production and stuff from the start. And you will build a good reputation and name for yourself that people, I shouldn't say can't criticize because some people will always criticize you, but your average customer won't be able to criticize you for because you're doing things above and beyond what your average breeder is doing. Most breeders do not show you behind the scenes, and that's for a reason. I'm sure you know most breeding facilities will not show you behind the scenes, and that's because it's not pretty to look at. And I would like to change that stigma. I would like to make breeding pretty. And this kind of leads into my last topic with you is when I talk to Rebecca, who you know, Rebecca, that she has the channel. Oh no, I didn't talk to her. Sorry. I think it was Sophie's Geckos in Switzerland. I don't know if you know who Sophie's Geckos is.
Okay. No, I don't.
But she actually said that they have standards that they need to abide by over there. So like when they're breeding leopard geckos, they could put like a 1.2 pair of like leopard geckos, but it has to be in like a 4x2x2 cage, like something like that. I forget the exact standards that she gave, but I was like, oh, that's actually kind of cool how like they actually have standards over there. Whereas in America, we have no standards. Like it's like put a leopard gecko in a 6-quart tub. Just don't show anybody. Fine. Like just do it behind the scenes. Fine. Whatever. Nobody cares. Everybody cares about the end product. What's the gecko look like? How beautiful is the gecko? But what I would like to see change is not only how beautiful is the gecko, but how beautiful is the setup. So just between me and you, like that's something that I'm trying to push and make changes for myself on. I know I have to practice what I preach, number one, before I can really, see, change of that. But that's something I would like to see. So
there's so much more to it. There's so much more to it. There's so much I can say about breeding. I do loads of stuff. Like I pay for consultancy of people from like chickens to dogs to like horses to flowers. Like I've got so many textbooks on. I think you'd be surprised about the breeding that I'm trying to do and stuff. But as an example, what you just said, right? Let's say you got leopard geckos.
Yep.
Let's say one keeps on sniffling, right? Right.
Yeah.
Unless you've got it at like you limit those variables and you've got your basket and your UV and you're keeping it great, right? And then you like it's a standardized like great. It can't be because it's not heating up. It can't be because it hasn't got UV. At what point can you determine it's genetic unless you limit variables? And at what point do you do test pairings and like work? So there is so much more to breeding than I think breeders do. There's so honestly, right, I could go on for hours. That'll
be our next topic of
the genetics. Fascinate me. I love it.
But yeah, just to kind of recap what you said, because I talked to a lot of breeders that will here's an example recently that came out was pollen, bee pollen. And you may agree with this, but I'm using this as an example. There are people that say that bee pollen increases or brightens and more saturates the color of leopard geckos. And my first thought is, okay, so you started using bee pollen and you think that some of your leopard geckos are increasing in color, but there's so many other factors you're not considering here. You're not considering genetic variance, how one sibling is naturally going to be more colorful than another sibling. You're not considering pool size. How many geckos have you actually tested this with? 5, 10, 100, 1,000? You need a pool size that is very large, and you also need a pool size that is very diverse, not just from your own collection. So that's just one example where I think the hobby falls short is they take these little things like wives' tales. They take these like old wives' tales, like red bulbs blind your leopard geckos, and they turn it into something that it's not. They turn it into something that is like a for sure thing. You know what I mean? Now, you may have the opinion that bee pollen for sure increases the color of the leopard geckos, but all I'm saying is the data would need to show that a study rules out that it's not related to environmental changes that one leopard gecko has versus another leopard gecko, or genetic changes that one leopard gecko has versus another leopard gecko. That's all I'm saying before we conclusively say that something like bee pollen increases the color of your leopard gecko, so that everybody starts loading up their leopard geckos with bee pollen, and then they get like sugar overdose or something. I don't know. I'm just, what I mean?
What I would say is to figure that out, I would standardize the care so they're all kept the same way. And then it needs to be a line where the line is so developed that you've proven type that when you make an animal, you're basically like copy and pasting this near enough the same animal over and over again, where your line is that far along that you've proven type and you're near enough going to get the same animal over and over again. At that point, when you know that they grow, the growth rate of that line, how at that point, when you know that you've standardized and you've got that type, then you can like play about with like bee pollen, like if you know how they develop equally the same in that clutch because you've got that far down the line, then you could be like, the one that gave bee pollen, you split the clutch, you give one half this and this. The bee pollen is getting a little bit like, but to put like random things and be like, oh yeah, bee pollen, I don't know. Like there's so many variables, like you said, like, but
yeah,
people don't know, do they?
Yeah, people jump to conclusions real quickly, but that's where content creators come in, right? And I think, like I said, for the longest time, one of the reasons that Brian Barczyk, the beloved Brian Barczyk, got so criticized was because if you look at his earliest videos, very minimalistic setup, very low enrichment, and then he developed like a hater team that just followed him. It's so sad. I don't know your opinion on this, but they were even criticizing him after he died and like saying he deserved to die and that he's in hell and all kinds of stuff. People got really crazy with it, right?
Well, that's you just being a dickhead. That's why.
Yeah, but at some point in the line, he realized, you know what? I don't like to see the animals in these low enrichment settings, and I'm going to start making changes. One thing I tell people is change doesn't happen right away, especially when you have a large collection. Like I had 2,000 leopard geckos last year, and I've been talking about downsizing. I'm down to like 1,000 leopard geckos now. My goal is to get to like 500 and increase like the tub size and the enrichment that the animals have. And then my next step would be to increase the heating capabilities or the lighting capabilities that the animals have. But you have to be realistic. When people make changes, and you have, like Brian Barczyk had 20,000 plus animals, you can't just expect that he's going to put all 20,000 animals on UVB overnight. Like, these changes are going to take time. Give people time, but look for evidence of their change. And you could see evidence that Brian Barczyk drastically changed his perspective on animal keeping by opening the Reptarium and by showing what he wanted to do for animals. And then now I saw his wife. I don't know why her name is spacing me.
Lori.
Right? Lori, thank you. Lori just came out with a video today saying how they're selling BHB, which was their breeding operation, which had all those animals in tubs and stuff like that. They're getting rid of that whole operation because that's not where they want to go for their vision. But all I'm saying is, like, give people time to change and give them some grace to be able to do so. If you just come out swinging like, oh, you don't care, you're still keeping animals in tubs and stuff like that, you're not going to progress the hobby. You're just going to develop cancel culture, and you're just going to develop negativity, and that's not going to move us forward.
The saying that I use is, you need to, first of all, grow up. Second of all, you need to allow people the space to grow and change. Otherwise, if you're constantly attacking them, they can never like step into that space. You can't have a go at someone for not like striding into that space whilst then pinning them in the corner and not allowing them to grow and change. If you're like, if you always like, if they grow and change and step into that space, yeah, but you did this before, like, right. All right, okay, you have to allow them to change. Like, at some point, you need to just.
I like that. Grow up. Well, is that one word or two words? Grow up. I think it's 2 words.
2, yeah, I think.
Maybe it's 2 in the UK, 1 in the US. But
I don't know. But regardless, I think people are just OTT. I've relaxed a lot, like in recent years. I honestly, I went from like one of the harshest people to being like, whatever, mate. Like,
yeah, that's cool. I mean, even when you were harsh, when people are harsh to me and criticize me, I understand that for the most part, it's coming from a place where somebody's just really passionate about what they believe. So even in the days when you were harsh for a reason. It's because you passionately believe reptiles deserve the best level of care we can give them. They deserve the best lighting, the best fooding, the best the best knowledge. They deserve to be treated the best that we can treat them. And that's just really near and dear to your heart. And I can't hate on you for that. You know what I mean? I can really appreciate that you're at a place today where you can talk with somebody maybe who is on the opposite side and just give your opinions on things and let the chips lie where they may. I can appreciate that, but I appreciate where your passion is coming from. Like, if you get mad at somebody or critical, it's coming from a place that you just genuinely care about the animals and you want to see what you think is best about them. So even the people that criticize me and critique me, sometimes I need to take a step back and just understand that, like, okay, Frank, this is really important to them. And this is just the way that they're trying to express. It may not be the best, or you may not like the way they're expressing it, but they're just expressing to you how important this is to them in more or less terms, you know? So we need passion in this hobby, but I think we also need patience. Kindness in this hobby. And that was one thing Brian said, was his whole thing was be kind to somebody, you know? So that was amazing. One more thing that I'm going to let you say whatever you have to say in closing. Can you leave the link to the Alibaba UV supporting rack systems that you were showing off earlier in this video? Can you like leave that in a comment below or email that to me, and I'll put that in the description of this video. Also, if anybody who listens to this knows any other rack companies that do have, especially Americans, since I'm in America here, rack companies that are working on like UV light or UVA and infrared lighting setups or anything like that, please leave it in a comment below, and I'll put that in the description as well. So thank you so much, Liam. Is there any other topics or anything that you feel like is on your heart to say or to touch on before we conclude?
Not without delving into like another 2 hours of
Yeah.
talking about. But yeah, we're good.
Okay. Well, I will look to connect with you in the future on some of those topics as well. There's so much to touch on with reptiles. I mean, we used to think that they were brainless potatoes, and now we're actually, I think deep down inside, most keepers have always known they're not brainless potatoes because you can see your animals interacting with you. But now there's actually like peer-reviewed research, correct me if I'm wrong, that's being put out there to actually show that reptiles have deeper mental capabilities than we have given them credit for, and they're capable of bonding and all those kinds of things.
I'll say something that's gonna like be a really like tagline that I love. Right, you only have emotions because reptiles developed it first.
Okay.
So emotions are thought to have emerged around somewhere from amphibian to reptile onwards. I don't know if that means that amphibians don't have emotions. I'm not sure if I necessarily believe that, but we know for certain that a lot of the more complex emotions and stuff started with reptiles, and then everything evolved from reptiles after that, because it went fish, amphibian, reptile, and then bird, mammal came from reptile, and you had the mammal-like reptiles and stuff. But in a nutshell, the only reason that you and I and mammals have emotion is because reptiles developed it first. So for us to be like reptiles don't have emotion,
it's dumb.
Reptiles would have to have lost emotion,
Right.
which they wouldn't have because they're beneficial to survival. Fear is beneficial. Frustration is beneficial. It lets an organism know when to give up when something's wasting time. Like, you think of any emotion, you can think of the reason why it benefits survival. There is no reason why an organism would lose emotion after. So there's so much. Yeah.
That is.
But there's the tagline. The only reason that you and I have emotions because reptiles had them first.
That's such a good tagline. Have you said that before? I've never heard you say that before.
Yeah. I'll make a lot of videos, mate. I'll make a lot of videos. No one's seen all of them. It's impossible.
Yeah. I mean, so that's so good. From that perspective, you know what I mean? Because I have my own beliefs about my name, Geeky Gecko Creations. You know, I have my own beliefs about like creationism and kinds creating kinds rather than evolving from a singular kind, so to speak. But from that perspective, I will give so much credit to that perspective that if you are in the camp that you believe that you evolved from fish to reptiles to mammals or whatever to humans, if you believe that, you have to believe that reptiles have emotions because there's no way for them to pass on something that they didn't have. So that's
scientifically proven.
Yeah, that's such a good
in the brain of a ball python. There is dopamine. There is all the hormones that we associate with how the happy hormone. It's like everyone says you can't say an animal's happy, right? But what is happiness other than an overwhelming positive sensation of positive emotions?
That's so good. What does NX Gecko says? Come on, Frank, help a brother out. Did you have a question?
He wants you to give him geckos.
Oh, is that what it was? Oh man, you're good. I wasn't even looking at
some of these lucky geckos to live with their children too, right, Frank? You got this. I think he wants you to send him geckos.
Oh.
Oh, that's a different person, to be fair. Maybe he's saying that about that though. I don't know. Comment again so we can read it again. What you're actually talking about.
Yeah, if you something about humidity. What is your question on humidity? You want Liam to touch on humidity? Do you provide humid hides? How do you do humidity? Do you have misters or what do you do for your leopard geckos?
For leopard geckos.
Yeah, for leopard geckos.
I give them a humid hide.
Okay.
That's it.
Do you make
all year round,
or do you buy like the ones that are like the dome and then you put soil in it, or do you make yours out of like bricks or rocks and stuff and then put?
I've got a 3D printer.
Oh, okay. So
I make a little like one where it's a sleeve over it. I put like a tub full of moss.
Yeah.
But when people do Tupperware with a hole, same thing.
Yeah. Well, you got 5 seconds NXS because there's about a 30-second delay between YouTube and the live. So if you do have if anybody has a last question for Liam, you and I will just shoot the breeze for like 30 seconds because YouTube is 30 seconds behind what I see on the live. So if anybody has a last question, let me know.
What I will say for leopard geckos is too high humidity doesn't matter.
I've heard that. I've seen some reports about like in India they have periods where they have like 80% humidity in their environment or something in like West India, I believe.
It's even simpler than that. Humidity is just the amount of moisture in the air, right? The amount of water in the air. It's not the wetness. So you can have really high humidity, but if the environment is dry and it's not actually wet, and you have good airflow, doesn't matter. Bearded dragons could be 100% humidity, as long as the environment is dry and you have good airflow. Doesn't matter. Right now, I'm sat at 70% humidity in this room. I have bearded dragons, leopard geckos. I have sand snakes. It doesn't matter.
All right. While we're waiting on any questions, a couple fun questions. What is your favorite reptile of all time? If you had to pick one, like if you had to pick one species to keep and you had to get rid of everything else in your room, what would the one species be? You could have as many of that species as you want, but what would the species be if you had to choose one species?
Hybrids don't count. That's cheating.
What hybrid do you have?
What don't I have?
That's another thing people get nuts over is hybrids. I'm just like, oh well, okay.
Yeah, I breed hybrids. I've done whole fucking hours and hours of content about that. It's too long for me to explain right now. But I breed. I have. We have a pair, an F2 pair. Well, one's an F2, one's an F3. It's difficult, but it was a 50% corn snake to a 50% Leonis to a 50% Ruthen's king snake to 50% corn, which made 25% Ruthen's, 25% Leonis, 50% corn. And then I also have some Imperials, which are Cali and Pueblo milk snake. And I'm breeding them to look like cows.
So you like the hype? Like, would that be your choice? That would be the number one?
Or leopard geckos, to be honest. Leopard geckos are really cool.
Yeah, leopard geckos.
It'd be beginner stuff. Honestly, I have white-lipped pythons, diamond pythons, weird rear-fang venomous sand snakes. I've worked with crocodile monitors, Cyclora. I've worked with it all, right? And it's the beginner stuff that's like chilled to get on with, that I can get it out and have a play with it. A royal python, my royal python is 6 foot. So when I get that royal python, the ball python,
really,
out,
you have a 6-foot ball python?
She's massive. You've not seen the size of my ball python.
I've only had
7-foot Viv, and she's stretched out across the lot of it.
Wow. My biggest one was 5, but my average is like 3, I'd say, like for a female. So that's amazing. It's a girl?
Yeah. She's big.
And I bet she climbs, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've only got her in a 7x2x2, and she climbs on the branches cork that's in there. She basks, she climbs, all the whole thing. So it would be one of the beginners. Leopard geckos, maybe bull pythons.
Okay.
Maybe bearded dragons. One of the beginner things. It wouldn't be an advanced thing.
What about favorite dinosaur, if you have one? If you could have, well, I shouldn't say if you could have it as a pet, because if it was a T-Rex, that wouldn't make much sense. But just favorite dinosaur, I guess, or a dinosaur that you would like to have as a pet.
I like Ceratosaurus.
Ooh, I don't even know what that is. What is that?
It's the one with the horn. It's
oh, it's like the T-Rex looking one with the horn,
with the little horn. Yeah.
Okay.
If you've ever seen the third Jurassic Park movie, it's the one that walks up to them with the palms of shit and sniffs and walks up.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes, that's cool. Would you? No, I don't want to sound like I don't know what your view is on humans riding horses, but I was gonna say, would you try to train him so you could ride on him or something?
Honestly, if I was a millionaire, I would do all sorts.
Have you seen the people that are so against horse riding that they turn themselves into the horse and then they gallop over? They have competitions where they gallop over like the things that the horses would be galloping over.
Yeah, I was going to say Allosaurus. It was up there, but I like Cerato as well. I like Baryonyx too. Or was I going to say T-Rex? That's too basic.
Yeah. Allosaurus is pretty cool. Coffee or tea?
Oh, that's difficult. Depends. I've been converted lately. I like coffee a lot. I do both, yeah.
Do you do pour over coffee? I just got into pour overs like this year. Do you know what that is?
I'm not a big coffee person. My girlfriend has a coffee machine. I drink what she puts in front of me. That's as far as I go.
Yeah, so usually with the coffee machine, those beans are like they're like older usually, and they're more like the flavor is already gone from them
Right.
most of the time. So
To be honest, I'll just drink
pour-over-
it wherever it is. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. But
I'm
if
easy
you
like that. Everyone's like, "Do you like this?" At the I'm like, "Put food in front of me, I'll eat it."
yeah,
That's how I am. I'm like, I'm easy.
I saw your lights go off. So what time do you? I guess that's a good question. Is what time do
9
you?
till 9, but it
9 to
slips a little
9.
bit.
Okay. Yeah, Allosaurus. I don't see any more questions in the chat, so I'm going to assume somebody said they have a question for the next time we do a video. So
Okay.
I'll think of some topics maybe that I could shoot over to you. But thank you so much, man. I hope you enjoy your New Year's coming up, which will be, it's not tonight for you, it's tomorrow still, right? I think tomorrow or something. But anything you'd like to promote on the way out, like a certain video or a certain channel or any of your channels, if you want to say anything?
No, check out Reptiles and Research, if I can say my own name right. But that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. And I know you have a lot of videos you do, as well as I think some podcasts and interviews you've done on YouTube regarding some cool reptile topics and whatnot. And yeah, you're always at the top of the line when it comes to like things that your average reptile keeper is not talking about nowadays. So if you guys would like to just see some cool reptile knowledge, increasing progressive reptile knowledge in the hobby, definitely give them a follow, Reptiles and Research, and we will shoot to, if you do have a topic that you would like for us to cover, leave it in a comment below, and then I'll think of some topics too, and we'll try to set up round 2 for the future. So I'll see you on the other side of 2026, my friend. Thank you so much for giving us 3 hours tonight. I really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you, brother. I'll see you next time.
No worries. See you next time. Thanks for having me on.
All right, guys, have a geeky gecko. Great day. Peace.